Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Reem with you for the next couple hours all over the Jets, looking to get back into the win column tonight after the disaster in Buffalo and the post-game players-only closed-door meeting. Tonight, it's the Montreal Canadiens, who have had some recent struggles of their own. Lost on home ice last night to the Ottawa Senators, and we'll be right back at it tonight against a Jet team that goes into this game looking for answers and with quite a bit of intrigue as to how the lineup will look tonight. We had a great conversation yesterday with Murata Tesh on how things may play out over the course of, the 24 hours leading into the game. We've got some answers. We'll get to the lineup changes and the clean line lines coming up right away. And we'll also hear from head coach Scott Arniel. We'll hook up with our old pal Moe Khan in Montreal, find out what the latest with the Habs is. Talk, maybe even get to some other topics with Moe. He's a bit of a renaissance man, if you will. Love Moe. We can talk about pretty much everything. It is a big week for some of the other big things that he follows quite closely. Obviously, some news in the CFL. We'll talk about that with Hammer later on in the program. But certainly the World Cup draw coming up on Friday as well, which I think everyone very intrigued to see where Canada ends up. So Moe coming on first, and then we'll really dive into the latest on the Winnipeg Jets with Kevin Sawyer. Kevin's in Montreal tonight. Now, this game, I believe, is a Sportsnet game. But Kevin's been on the trip. He's had a chance to watch these games, and it'll be interesting to get his perspective, presumably from the press box from Monday night's game in Buffalo, not as part of the broadcast team, because, of course, that was an Amazon game. So Kevin will join us. We'll talk about how things are looking tonight, the changes that have been made, the changes that haven't been made that may still be made if they don't win this hockey game tonight. And that is all coming up today on WST. We'll get to all the top stories from the Jets in just a moment. Do want to thank our friends, all the wonderful sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. In particular, our partners at Coolbet Canada. Folks, I will tease it. This will be a tease. Jeff's coming on later on, but the Costa Rica Poker Festival is back on. And we will be having 3 tournaments to qualify people to get into that final tournament to win a trip down to Costa Rica at the end of January, a perfect time to go for the Costa Rica Poker Festival, courtesy of Coolbet. So stay tuned for information on that. But you can mark it down. Our next tourney is next Wednesday. And we'll confirm the top, I believe sort of the top 3 from each event will go into the finals and then can play for that trip. Of course, another amazing prize and promotion from our friends over at Coolbet. Of course, our friends at the Winnipeg Jets. Lots of games coming up next week, including Friday against the Buffalo Sabres. And then a busy holiday season and a packed January. Get your tickets now. Some great promos going on heading into the holidays. And, of course, our next WST game is Friday, January 9th, the après-ski night. We'll be giving away the ski goggles. I think we might get our hands on a couple of those and wear them for a show beforehand. But you want to get the WST on your list, a gift, why don't you get tickets for that game? Go over to winnipegjets.com/WST and book yourself in for that game. Or our next game is actually February 4th against these Montreal Canadiens, their lone visit of the year. And that, of course, is the last game before the Olympic break in the National Hockey League. Also want to thank our friends at Cleanline, Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, Canadian Club, Uptown Alley, St. Vital Dental Center, Rolly's Transfer, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. We'll get to a why not question of the day for not AutoCorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. And, of course, fan feedback for fansfirst.ca. Remis, what's going on? How are you?
I'm just eagerly counting down to tonight's game. Yes, it is a Sportsnet broadcast. Jets at Canadiens, and for the Jets coming off that loss in Buffalo, not feeling so great. But Montreal, on the flip side, they just lost the first game of this back-to-back for them last night at home. So both teams not liking where they're at. The Jets 1-4 in their last 5. Hasn't gone well, but a good opportunity to wrap up the road trip here with a win. Return home for 1 against Buffalo on Friday, then off to Edmonton again Saturday. So a lot of teams playing these back-to-backs, compressed schedule as they get ready for the short ice Olympics in February.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second as well. This is sort of surprising, but if you look at the record for the last 10 games between these two teams, the Jets actually have a better last 10 than Montreal does. Montreal's 3-6-1 in their last 10. Jets are 4-6. Neither is good, but it just goes to show that both teams have not been certainly where they were with those good starts at the start of the season. We'll find out more about the Habs coming up a little bit later on, but there you see the tail of the tape for tonight's game. I mean, the Jets, 13-12, no overtime losses. Montreal, 13-12. However, 3 of those losses were in OT, so they're 3 points better than the Winnipeg Jets in the standings. More goals for the Habs per game, 336 to 304. More goals against per game, 3.6 to 3 on the nose. The Habs with a bit of an advantage, 25.4 to 22.1 in the power play. And the Jets with about a 7-point lead, 83-9 to 77-1 in the PK. So, listen, 2 teams that probably will desperately want to win. This, to be honest, I know we haven't had this very much, Remo, but this has overtime written all over it. 2 teams that really need to get a result and a point. Tell you this, if this game is tight in the third period, I wouldn't expect any teams going all out to try and win in regulation. Bottom line is they want to get 2 points, but you got to get 1. That's the thing that has been the most frustrating about these Jets, this Jets run, is that they have not even been getting to overtime, Reem. I mean, their losses have been clean losses, and as we've said so often, the overtime losses are sort of whatever. I mean, they're basically ties when it comes down to the big picture. You get half of what a win is. You go an extended period without getting any points, and that is how you plummet in the standings. And that really is the story of the Jets month of November, and to be honest, where Montreal is over their course of their last 10 or dozen games.
Yeah, just looking at both teams here and their place in the standings, Winnipeg Jets 26 points in 25 games, 2 back of Seattle, who's got 28 and 24, and Montreal, again, they are 2 back of the Flyers. So the standings very tightly compacted. Important not just to win, but to lose in overtime as well. They all count. So, curious coming into this game, the Jets talking about, okay, we need to step up, we need to play better, more commitment to defensive structure. They've talked, had the team meeting, but let's see, how they look once they hit the ice.
Yeah, it's not about talking right now. It's about doing, and we'll get to that. But they're no surprise that they're not just running out the same lineup that got run over by the Buffalo Sabres on Monday. 3 changes tonight to the roster. Cole Koepke is in, and for the first time this year, Gustav Nyquist is a healthy scratch. The offseason addition hasn't scored yet. Obviously, I haven't been too pleased with what he's been giving him. He's out tonight. And Cole Koepke, who hasn't scored either, but I thought was pretty effective in a fourth-line role early on, gets back in. And 2 changes on the blue line. Luke Schenn and Colin Miller are both out. And the Jets will welcome back Neil Pionk to that second pairing alongside Dylan Samberg. And Elias Salmonson gets in on the third pairing with Logan Stanley. And, as we turn to the clean lines right now, up on the screen, of course, all our lines presented by our friends at Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years, the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets, captain approved. Just first off on the defense, Remo, this is a group, frankly, I'd love to see them run with for a little bit. We talked about the good and the bad from the first couple games in the NHL for Elias Salmonson. Certainly when you consider what the Jets were getting from Luke Schenn and Colin Miller, albeit in a less number of games, Elias showed enough that I think he's ready for a bit of a run here in the lineup. And listen, Logan Stanley has played pretty well so far this season. He's been doing a lot of it at times in a second pairing when Dylan Samberg was gone. A Salomonsson Stanley third pairing, I think, is certainly the way I would be penning things in moving forward. And obviously, you get Neil Pionk back with Dylan Samberg, which is important. I realized that when Samberg was out, the Pionk numbers, and this has been for a couple years, if sort of really taken a hit. I think we saw that, Pionk adds a lot. I mean, those guys together are better than the sum of their parts. I guess I'll just leave it at that. He was in some unfortunate situations and made a couple bewildering decisions. So he'll be back with his usual partner. That's a great thing. And then, of course, Josh Morrissey, who has been, if you wanted to single out one player that was still really going, albeit had some moments like everybody else did on Monday night. To me, it was Josh Morrissey, and I think Dylan DeMello is a guy that really needs to step up his game. There have been the penalties. We heard him in particular sort of indirectly get called out by Scott Arniel after the Carolina game. So the blue line set up quite well. What do you think about the way the defense core is looking before we get to the forwards for the clean line lines?
Yeah, I'd like to see Elias Salomonsson get another shot here. We've seen a lot of Luke Shen. It was going to be him or Colin Miller coming out for Neil Pionk. Nice to see him back from injury. But yeah, give him a run. Let's see how he goes. Good opportunity against a Montreal team that's out of a playoff spot. That is the youngest team in the NHL. He's on the roster. We've had Miller on for 2 against. Shen's had his struggles this year. They need to get faster, a bit younger. Let's give Elias a shot. He's earned it. So I was happy to see that they made that change.
Yeah, and who is it that was asking? Thomas Penner, is that Salo's offside? No, he's a right shot defenseman. He's a righty. Stanley's a lefty. I think this puts these guys in the best place to succeed. And listen, I know some people are saying, I'd love to see Elias with Josh Morrissey. Listen, I would too, and I think there'll be a time for that. But this guy's played 2 games in the NHL. Let's try and give him an opportunity to play, many of the minutes that young players have been given in the past. Some better matchups. You're not going up against the top guys on that other team, and give them a chance to sort of really grow into that spot. And listen, at some point this season, I think that there's a possibility we may see Elias play with Josh. We did in that game, but as Scott Arniel said, that was just a complete reaction to some guys and seemingly Dylan DeMello that, to quote the coach, didn't show up for that game. So that's the way the defense looks. And I can already see Samster, all things are on the table, proceeds to do the old depth player switch, LOL. Everything is on the table. We'll see what happens tonight. But, Remo, I have to give Murat Atesh credit. If anyone missed Murat's visit with us yesterday, I was sort of pushing for, all right, let's get some of the young guys up right now. Let's keep in mind this is the last game of a road trip. And Murat made the very good point that I thought about last night, and I'm like, you know what, he's right, and he's going to be right, and he is right. They did the players-only meeting after that game last night. And while the coaches are going to put together their lineup that thinks of guys that deserve to be in, the all things on the table, breaking up the lines, adding guys from the Moose, trading players, that was going to happen after they got to have a shot at redeeming themselves. And tonight is that night. You get one chance. And as Murat said, I think they go with those same lines for the most part in tonight's game, see what happens. And if it's more of the same, then we could see significant changes going forward into Friday. But Murat called it, and that is why we're seeing another rolling out of Connor Scheifele-Velarde, Taves in between Perfetti and Nemetsnikov, Lowry with Iafallo and Niederreiter, and Cole Koepke, who, to be honest, I think should have been in the lineup earlier. Had a really nice start to the year, got injured against the Sharks on that play where he probably could have scored. He'll make his return to the lineup. Morgan Barron's in the middle. Pearson's on the side. And we'll see how things go from there. But as I say, as much as we're all wanting to make up, listen, I get it, Remo. After a game like we saw against the Buffalo Sabres, everyone wanting to change a lot of things. When you have that sort of a reaction internally to a loss that way, I'm not surprised the coaches are giving these guys one more time to get out there and show that they belong together and can be a hell of a lot better than they were. And if that isn't the case, then there's going to be much bigger decisions and plenty of closed-door meetings amongst management if they can't get a much better performance tonight.
Yeah, they're talking about playing fast and quick decision making. They're opting to keep the top line together. Give them a shot here to right the ship, but you're going to have to get something from one of these lines. I like seeing Cole Koepke in. He brings speed. Can you have Pearson and Nyquist together with Barron on that fourth line? And Nyquist has had some nice plays, but he doesn't have a goal so far. So we'll see how this line runs. We'll see if it lasts, if they make any changes. That top line's going to carry the load, but we got to see something here from some of the other guys to give them a little support as they go up against Montreal.
Yeah, I'll go on the record right now. And again, thinking back to what Murat said, if the game goes well tonight and they get a win and they come back, maybe you see this again on Friday night. Listen, if they change the lines tonight, that means it's going poorly. And I mean, listen, Montreal's a real fast team. I mean, this could go ugly. If that happens, then I think you'll see the top line blown up for Friday's game against Buffalo back at home. But this is basically their opportunity to say we're much better than we've been showing. This is our chance to go and do it against a Habs team that played last night, as we mentioned, against the Ottawa Senators. Remo, let's listen, I want to get to Scott Arniel and hear what he had to say about this. But first off, we got a clip from Darren Dreger. Seems like people are now like, whoa, what's going on in Winnipeg? Well, this team's not winning games anymore. They were 9-3. What the heck? Now people are asking questions. And, of course, Darren Dreger's got a pretty good line into the organization. This is what Dregs had to say on insider trading on, needing to commit back to what made them a strong team last year, and that was their defensive game.
Lots of people want to point to goaltending, and that isn't the case. I mean, obviously, when you've got an elite goaltender like Connor Hellebuyck at your availability, he can mask a lot of defensive issues. But really, that's what it boils down to of late in terms of how the Winnipeg Jets are playing. Too many breakdowns in the defensive zone, too much time there, too much energy, which takes away from their offensive push. So there is no quick fix here. There's no trade that's going to help this. What may help it is a players-only meeting, which they had after a humbling loss Monday to the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo to reestablish that commitment to playing better defense, the identity of the Winnipeg Jets.
Remo, I know you used the black screen for that, but that would have been funny if we had just put the Sabres banner on top of that black screen talking about the forced team to have players-only meeting after the Monday game. You can see the lines however you want. This team better be ready to work tonight, and they better be ready to skate against a very, very fast Habs team that I don't think will be in a very good mood after their loss last night. But Scott Arniel spoke after the morning skate today. We mentioned 3 changes to the lineup, 2 on the blue line, 1 up front. Here's what Arniel had to say about the last game and the changes tonight.
I probably ruined my day yesterday, but I got to move on. This league, it's too much going on, too fast, too many games in a short period of time. We know we have to be better. We looked at some things this morning, talked about some things, and it's be better than we were the other night. We're not going to win hockey games, doing what we did. So there needs to be a big improvement.
You had 3 potential cards to play if Neil was healthy, and you played them all by making those 3 lineup changes. Do you think this makes your group maybe a little bit quicker?
I think our whole group needs to play quick, and that has not just not bodies. I think that you defend when you defend fast and you close quick and take away time and space. It helps you get the puck quicker, and then you're on transition. I think that we chased that game the other night because we never closed things off fast enough. And so you look at lineups. I think when you do things, there's veteran teams in this league that do things by stifling the opposition, not giving them room to work, and that allows you to have the puck a little bit more often than the opposition. So we need to be better at that, and hopefully that so-called speed sort of shows.
All right, so there's Arnie on the last game, probably a pretty bad day on the road for everybody involved on that travel day, and of course what they're looking for tonight. They did get a chance to watch the Habs in action last night against Ottawa. Here's what he had to say about watching Montreal's loss to the Sens last night.
Came to that game last night. Obviously, Ottawa played a real good road game. A lot of what we have to do as well. Montreal's got transition, they got speed, they got some young kids that can really skate, so we can't let them get into that game. We let Buffalo get into that game our last game. So, like I mentioned, Ottawa did a real good job of keeping numbers and taking away the middle of the ice. That's something that we preach an awful lot, that we have to, when we're on our game, we're defending first, we're making it hard, and that has to be real good tonight.
All right. Interesting note of this game, and much has been made about the age of the Winnipeg Jets team. This is sort of a battle of the noobs versus the geezers, the youngest team in the NHL versus the oldest. Arniel was asked about that.
The organizations are in two different spots. I think that we've been building from our core, and our core being, Scheifele, Connor, Lowry, Hellebuck, Morrissey. Those guys are all our young draft picks that have blossomed to become our core. Montreal's working on that, and obviously that's why they're young and they have some really good pieces. So we're in two different spots right now as organizations. We're not off the best start, but we still feel we're a strong playoff team. We just got to make sure that we get going and get ourselves in. But Montreal's looking to get there. They took a huge step last year, obviously making it in, and like I mentioned, both organizations are in two different spots, I believe.
All right. Now, much has been made of the struggles of the team overall, but Jonathan Toews in particular, with the resume, the history, the excitement of him being added to the club. It's been a rough run for the team and for Jonathan Toews over the last little while. Here's Arnie on Jonathan Toews on the ice, as well as leadership, intangibles, and his role on this team.
Yeah, I think the big thing with JT is that it's all new to him too right now, because it's been a couple of years, and he's the first to admit that the league is even faster than when he left it. And so for him, he's got a lot of wisdom. He does a fantastic job of looking after himself, his body, and trying to get himself prepared each and every night. And I know offensively the numbers aren't there, but you know what, I think for him, we've talked about, this isn't a 10 game, 20 game, 30 game thing. This is about building towards the 82nd game and then playoffs. So he's a good example. What comes out of his mouth, our guys listen. He's got a lot. Obviously, he's got a great hockey IQ, but he's been through a lot of situations and won in a lot of situations that is very helpful for our group.
Is it important to have a really good leader like that to your leadership group?
Yeah, well, yeah. We've been, obviously for myself, the last few years, our leadership group has taken a huge step forward, naming Adam, Lowry, and Scheif and JMO as captains. But it's the other guys that maybe don't wear the letters, like Casey and Pionk, and these guys have all kind of stepped up. But now you bring a guy like JT in that's been through a little bit more of the final product of winning the Stanley Cup 3 times, winning all those situations with Canada, representing Canada. And he brings things that some of our guys don't have in their resume. And so when he speaks, they listen. When I talk to him, I listen. But he is a great He is a great guy to sit down and talk with. And he knows the game. He sees the game. Elite players do. They see it different than it seems like everybody else. You'd like to somehow steal that knowledge and put it in everybody. But at the end of the day, him being around our group, talking and helping each young guys, old guys, it's real beneficial for us.
Right, so there's Arnie, and listen, I agree with him that the leadership group is night and day as to where it was, a couple years ago, which, to be honest, was quite problematic for this club. And thank you, Rick Bowness, for making the moves that he did. But today is a day, and you don't have to have a letter on your chest to show up with some passion, some energy, some urgency to try to go and win a hockey game. And if that is not the case for the Jets tonight, I'm not saying it won't be. I certainly hope that it will be. But if it isn't, that is I think you realize that you can have the best leaders and character guys and guys that you'd love to go to war with. But if you don't produce and you cannot play at the level that you need to win in the National Hockey League, there's probably some much bigger changes that need to be made with the hockey club than they could have ever imagined before. So it seems like the stakes are pretty big for this one. Again, it's still very early in the season, but it can get late real fast, and it's been feeling that way around the peg for the last month or so. One more from Coach. This is a bit of an injury update on Fleury and Connor Hellebuck.
I think Friday's got another appointment on Friday.
This coming, but he hasn't resumed skating.
I think he was gone, but just kind of just moving. Nothing heavy yet, no contact or any of that stuff.
And that will determine kind of next steps.
Yeah, we'll see Friday once we get home. Once I find out Friday, once the next report.
Just on Helly, I know it was the 4 to 6, so now it's 2.5 to 4.5. How quickly might he be able to start getting back into like any kind of on ice activity?
I think he's getting close to that, but don't take any of that. I'm gonna make sure he has like 4 yellow jerseys on him. So he's gonna be. We're making sure on this one. So he'll run into you and tell you, "Oh, you're feeling really good. I want to play next week." But this one we got to be obviously ultra careful with. But he, because of that injury, I believe he actually will be on the ice pretty soon. Whether that's shots or just movement or just working his edges.
Yellow pads. Yellow
everything's yellow. Everything's yellow. He's gonna look like a Nashville Predator with a jersey.
A little bit of levity at the end of that one today. Connor Hellebuck on track, coming back, and yes, he will be in bubble wrap and everything else as we get him back on the ice and hopefully back in the net. One other point, Remis, that has been discussed is whether the Jets are going to need to do something at the goaltending position. And Eric Comrie, of course, is back starting again tonight. There is a heavy load on his shoulders right now. And needless to say, it hasn't gone particularly well for him, but the team has been so far off of it. And he's going up against Dobas, who's been phenomenal this year for the most part. I mean, look at his record, 8-3-2. The save percentage, not great. Goals against average, sort of average. But I mean, that got a lot worse with these recent struggles of the Canadiens. We're going to talk to Moe Khan about that coming up in just a minute. But both goalies with sub-900 save percentages. Both goalies with the goals against averages in excess of 3. And Eric Comrie minus 1.6 on the goals saved above expected, and Dobas just above the median at 0.2. So interesting goaltending matchup tonight. The name that I had heard, Remo, and people were asking, I wonder if the Jets, will look into our old pal Laurent Brossoit. And Brossoit is an interesting name, and I mean, I think he'd be a guy that could come and help you. But then you look in, do you realize that he has not played a game in the National Hockey Game, or I believe a game professionally, since he was a Winnipeg Jet?
That's crazy. That was a couple of years ago, and his name came up on Insider Trading yesterday, and they did say the Jets aren't looking to add a goalie, and they did say Brossoit, or the Blackhawks have given Brossoit's agent Ray Petkow permission to go seek out a trade, similar to how Brad Lambert got permission a couple weeks ago. So he hasn't played. He's probably going to start in the AHL. He's coming back from hip surgery. I don't know how much you can count on him. They need time to come back, especially a goaltender as well. So I'd love to see LB in the National Hockey League. He was great in his 2 stints with the Jets and was able to parlay that into bigger contracts, but he hasn't played, and he was very good. It was 23-24. He played 23 games, 2.00 goals against, 927 save percentage. That was a great year for him, but we'll see him back in somewhat AHL action before we see NHL. Chicago has gotten great goaltending from Spencer Knight and Arvid Soderblom as well, so they're not in a rush to have LB back in the NHL.
Well, and listen, I mean, any sort of trade right now would be to stop the bleeding and just try to get someone to come in and kind of help Eric Comrie carry the load without Connor Hellebuck. It can't be a guy that hasn't played in 2 years. So as much as, if that happened down the road, and we're talking about, maybe an upgrade at the position at backup behind Hellebuck, okay, I guess I'm here for the conversation. But I mean, LB isn't coming off of being on the IR for the last year and a half and coming in to save the day in the next 3 weeks while Hellebuck is out.
The Jets already have one guy on their team who hasn't played in 3 years. So you got a limit on those. It's like when you play fantasy. That's the rule for your roster.
Listen, Moe Khan's going to join us. We'll get the latest on the Habs right away. Kevin Sawyer at the top of the hour. Jeff Hamilton a little bit later on in the program. Folks, with the holidays here, planning on getting together with friends and family for a great holiday outing or a little bit of a holiday party. Why don't you think about our friends over at Uptown Alley at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue? Their incredible new facility just around Polo Park is the epicenter of good times for kids of all ages. 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, laser tag, an amazing arcade, and really fun games where you win tickets and can grab great prizes, and absolutely awesome food and beverage options as well to take that event or just your night out to the next level. With the holidays here, I would also suggest that Uptown Alley gift cards would make amazing stocking stuffers or presents for under the tree this year. They've got so much going on. If you do want to plan an event, obviously they've got great birthday party packages for kids, teens, and adults. But if you want to do either a larger event, a work event, group or corporate, all you do is pick your activities, pick your meal, pick your add-ons, and then their event staff takes care of everything else. You can get at them to plan something at 488-0000. You shouldn't forget that number. Online at uptownalley.ca. And don't forget, every night after 9, if you're looking for something to do and you don't have to work in the morning, head on down to Uptown Alley. The Bowl and Play deal is a daily special, 90 minutes of bowling, $10 arcade card for $20.49 per person for 5-pin and $22.49 for 10-pin. Uptown Alley, 1301 St. Matthews. Tell the boys that you heard us talking about them on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Our friends at Rolly's Transfer are ready for 2026. Folks, if you have a move and are planning on making that move, lean on our friends at Rolly's to help you get there and take as much of the stress out of the moving process as possible. Rolly's, locally and family owned and operated for over 60 years, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Head on over to their website at rollys.com. You can click on Request an Estimate and make sure to use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and then fill in where you're moving to, when you're planning on moving, and what needs to be moved. And our friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quickly and get you a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rolly's has been famous for over 60 years. For all your moving needs, make it Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollys.com. If it's been a minute since you've seen the dentist, you might not be jumping at the next opportunity to do that, but I can tell you if you head down to St. Vital Dental Center, it'll be as fun and great an experience as you've had in a dentist chair. The great staff, along with our pal Dr. Terry, have been handling many WST customers recently and for years. They've been doing it for generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans, and now have a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. Serving customers from 6 months to 99 plus. They do it all. Cleanings, checkups, all the way to things like dental implants. Whatever your teeth need, Dr. Terry and the St. Vital Dental Center group can do it for you. Pop on down and see him. Make an appointment. Check them out online, stvitaldental.ca. Make an appointment. And if you're lucky, you can come in there on a Friday afternoon like many other WSTers and get your grill worked on while you watch and compete in the WST Marble Race against stvitaldental.ca. And just before we bring in Mo, the holidays are here, everybody. And that probably means for many of you a trip down to the Manitoba Liquor Marts. When you're there, make sure to check out the Canadian Club display, Canada's original Canadian whiskey, in the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Still a few of those Blue Bomber label bottles, perfect for holiday giving to that Bomber fan in. But you really want to keep your eye on right now is for the limited edition Cranberry Ginger Ale pre-mixed cocktail in cans. 4-packs and 473 milliliter cans available at the vendor. The great taste of Canadian Club, ginger ale, and cranberry just in time for the holidays. Just pour it on ice and enjoy. Again, available at liquor marts and beer vendors around the city. A big happy holidays and a safe holidays to all of you. Remember, don't drink and drive, from our friends at Canadian Club. All right, it's been too long. We've got one of our OGs on the program. the one and only Moe Khan, who joins us now from La Belle Province, Montreal, Winnipeg tonight. Mo, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Having a bad hair day, but we're matched with our hoodies today, though, which is pretty like telepathical with you and I in Winnipeg and Montreal. So proud of my hair today, though.
Yeah, there's very rarely a bad hair day. I mean, for you, a 9 out of 10 is a bad one for you. But hey, listen, just before we dive into the Habs and the Jets tonight, how you been? I mean, a busy week doing, or busy year. I mean, doing hoops and doing football and all that. And obviously, I mean, you've always been a fun guy to talk CFL with. A tough end to the season for the Montreal Alouettes right here in Winnipeg. Thought they were going to get it done there at the end, and that fumble on the goal line, I mean, it's the reverse play of the 13th man for the Riders. Finally, something that went their way in a championship game.
Yeah, it's funny because with Davis being where he was at that point and not being healthy, speaking to someone that was familiar with his situation, the Friday before the Grey Cup, I asked, what do you think? He goes, it wouldn't surprise me, if he re-injures injury that he had. And he did, unfortunately, right late in that football game. And he wondered if he was 100%, maybe it's a different game for the Alouettes. But look, the Riders were able to smash mouth football their way into this victory over Montreal, and deservedly so. They played well in that matchup here. The defense came up when they had to answer the key questions, especially in the goal line stance on the Shea fumble late in that football game. And I just think that SAS from wire to wire was probably the best team in the CFL. Montreal wasn't far away if Davis Alexander was healthy, but this was a fun year for the CFL. Andrew, you think about all the games that happened, the final 3 minutes of these matchups, whether it was Saskatchewan, Hamilton, whatever it is during the season. Every game had excitement, and hopefully that carries over for them in 26. And perhaps we do have a rematch with Sask and Montreal and Calgary for the Grey Cup next November. But there's no doubt in my mind that next year's season will be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, the off season is going to be a lot of fun to watch, particularly around here. Really, I mean, it was already bizarre through Grey Cup week with Mike O'Shea potentially going and leaving, and then Friday afternoon, no one's leaving, and we move on, but. OC search right now, reportedly. So we're going to get that to Hammer a little later on, but I did want to see what you thought about all that. So, Mo, tell us what's the mood around Montreal like right now? The Habs lost last night. We were just looking. Their last 10 games has been ugly, much like the Winnipeg Jets. Still in a pretty good spot after a good start. And again, a few of those losses, they've at least gone to overtime, so they're a few points up on Winnipeg tonight. But, I mean, the Jets have been in kind of free fall for about a month. I mean, where are the Habs at as we get ready for tonight's game?
Well, they've won 4 out of the last 13 games. They have given up 4+ goals in 11 of the 12 losses. They're doing okay. Doing pretty well there, But there is a bit of angst right now with the goaltending situation. Montembeault has not played well. He's below his numbers compared to where he was last year. Dobish is getting the start, as you mentioned before, in the lead up to this conversation. And he hasn't been that great either. And, you mentioned before with Winnipeg's goaltending issues, I think Rick Tabaracci might come out of retirement and play for the Jets at some point with the way it's going for them. But goaltending now in the supply and demand world of the NHL is a high need, but there's not many sellers right now because look how congested the East is. Look how close the West is right now. There aren't really much sellers. Calgary, Vancouver, maybe from that point, and the Rangers, who knows what they're going to do. But the reality is, for the Montreal Canadiens, they're hitting the worst peak of where they are right now with the injury bug, with 4 guys being out of the lineup, goaltending not being a strong point for them. And for Martin St. Louis, this is a key moment for him because look, Andrew, he's going to the final 15 months of his contract with the Montreal Canadiens. They re-upped Kent Hughes, they re-upped Jeff Gorton for another 3-4 years, and now he's up for a contract renewal. And this is a big referendum for him because a lot of fans now are starting to say, is he the right man to lead the charge for this organization at this point of the rebuild? But he's done the best that he can with this organization and what he has on the ice. But the reality is right now, if they're going to go far in this season, and look, I don't think they're going to Cup this year, but they need to get goaltending. And the guy that they want to get in the pipes is not ready yet, and Jacob Fowler, who's in Laval right now in the AHL, and probably won't be with the big club until maybe next year, the earliest, but probably 2 years down the road.
Goaltending is, it makes me realize how lucky we've been here in Winnipeg for the last 5-6 years that we have basically had no goaltending conversations. It hasn't been an issue. We talk about it for 2 days in the off season when they figure out who the backup goalie is going to be. Right. And then we look at where the back-to-backs are. We say, he's going to get a few starts there. And you can mix a couple in. and then you ride with your horse, Connor Hellebuck. Not the case right now with Winnipeg, obviously Eric Comrie, and the youngster Thomas Milic right now trying to hold it down, and it obviously has not gone very well. What's fascinating about the Habs situation is Dobas was really the story early on in the season, but just how far off Montembeault has been this year. I mean, this guy was on the Four Nations team, would have thought to have had an inside track on an Olympic berth.
Yep.
And safe to say that's probably not in the cards right now, Mo. I mean, tell us about Montembeault's season.
Yeah, it's been weird. Like, everyone had high hopes for Montembeault, and he came in and said, look, learning from Team Canada, Four Nations was huge for my development. Going through the playoff run that they had last year, losing to the Caps in 5 was huge for his development. And they come in, he's average. And, we're seeing excitement from the first line. We're seeing Demidov do Demidov things, which has been great for the organization's excitement palette. But the reality is, and Andrew, and all of your Winnipeg listeners know, if you're going to go far in the NHL season, let alone the playoffs, you need goaltending. And Montembeault has not lived up to the expectations. And it goes back to the point that I made before, that Jacob Fowler is not ready to be part of the Montreal Canadiens organization just yet, and needs another year or two to get himself a season to be at this level of pro hockey. But there aren't many feelers. I know Ken Hughes is probably out there trying to find another forward to work with, because you look at Jake Evans, he's minus whatever you want to look at. He's been terrible in the plus-minus department. And there's a lot of leaks right now in this organization. When they plug one leak, another leak pops up for them. And one of the key sore points for this organization is the 2C. They have not found a legitimate second-line center in the last 14 months of their development, and that might hurt them in the long play here, because, look, they have a lot of pieces to work to part with here, Andrew, in the farm system right now in Laval, and, of course, in the NCAA and junior ranks. But is Ken Hughes willing to do it now, believing that this team's ready to go? I don't think they are. Look, realistically speaking, I know Habs fans talk about, hey, we're going to be a cup contender. The window's open now, and it's probably open for the next 4 or 5 years to get themselves back in the position that they want to be 30 years ago as being a cup contender. But the thing is, do they want to give up the young pieces for maybe a goalie who may not be there in 2-3 years' time from now? Because if you're going to do that, this goalie better be the franchise savior and not a guy that's a stopgap solution until Fowler comes up.
At the same time, while we stress about the day-to-day of the NHL clubs, the players, I'm sure, are stressing day-to-day over their spot on the Canadian Olympic team. Nick Suzuki, Mark Scheifele, two guys that are right in the mix that have both had strong seasons. Tell us about Suzuki's season so far this year, because it seems like, both of these guys have put their best foot forward, and both teams have needed it, because you mentioned second-line center. It's been a Achilles heel for the Jets for quite a while as well, but the number one centers on both teams are certainly carrying their weight.
Yeah, and it's funny because Suzuki, remember, he said no to Team Canada for World Championships last May, right? And there was that as well, you say no the last 2 years, that might be held against you for the Olympic spot. And if you look at all the projections right now, they have him as a bubble player, right? Or at best fourth-line center if you were to be a part of that team come February in Milan. And I think for Suzuki, he is unbelievably talented. He's been healthy, knock on wood, for this franchise. He's been a true leader on the ice, off the ice, for what he's done, built up here. But at some point, Andrew, they have to alleviate the stress off his shoulders to be the man every single night. I mean, look, Slavkovsky's slowly becoming his own guy after being drafted first overall in 22. Cole Caulfield's a goal scorer. We know what he can do on the ice with his ability with his stick. But the thing is, they go as far as Suzuki can take him. But at the end of the day, they need to find more depth down the spine of the forward lines here with the center position. If they don't do that, I'm not saying he's going to wear it down here, but look, you're going to gas him out by the time April hits. And if they do qualify for the playoffs, he may not be fully energized in terms of where he wants to be at that point in the season.
I mean, Montreal is a hockey crazy market to begin with. And I know the conversations are all about the Habs and how they are doing, but how much oxygen has the Olympic team taken, and in particular Suzuki's spot? I'm not even sure if people are still talking about Montembeault being on the team.
No, I think the topic du jour is Cole Caulfield with USA, whether he makes it, and Nick Suzuki. And look, Noah Dobson, I think, has a strong chance to be on that Team Canada roster. He's had a fairly strong season for the Habs. But Suzuki is a talking point because, again, you think about what they got for him. Remember, he was the third choice in the trade discussions with Vegas when they traded Max Pacioretty to Vegas 6-7 years ago. I mean, it was Cody Glass that the Habs wanted, and McPhee said, no, we're not giving up Cody Glass, we'll give you Nick Suzuki, right? And so Suzuki's been that guy, has had a chip on his shoulder. And look, if it's going to be held against him by Hockey Canada that he didn't participate in the last 2 championships in the Springs, I mean, that's wrong on Canada, because Suzuki can be a part of this event. And given how things are now, Andrew, with the arena size dimensions in Milan not being at the NHL size level, it might fit to Suzuki's skill set. Again, he's a great two-way player, but there's a lot of Habs fans who believe he should be on the roster. But again, it comes down to Hockey Canada, whether or not they think he's the right man to be maybe the fourth-line center or be the added forward during the whole tournament.
Isn't that the craziest story coming out of Italy? And I mean, I remember previous Olympics. I seem to remember the Greeks in Athens. There was a whole bunch of disastrous venues. And Brazil, they were getting things ready right at the last minute. But
yeah,
I mean, for this one, with the amount of lead up that they've had, to have to cancel the early events, to have the things still not done beforehand, and then it just to sort of casually come out that Peter DeBoer went down there and guys, I think the rink's smaller than not Olympic ice. NHL ice. I mean, it could be 4 feet smaller, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. I can't believe that. And I mean, there is no backup plan for this either.
No, this is like a backyard hockey rink that you see in someone's house, right? I mean, that's the way it's going. But you think about back in the 80s, the old Buffalo Auditorium, the Hartford Civic Center, the old Boston Garden, those were all smaller rinks. But obviously, those have been eradicated for many, many years. And this would be a disaster for the IIHF, for the NHL, especially with them coming back with pro players that, hey, your rink's not to the level we're supposed to be. And now they're saying, hey, maybe do you move to Austria, Switzerland? Do you move to Sweden, as they did for the summer games when they moved the water events to Tahiti because there's no waves or ocean waves in Paris, right? So, look, the clock is running on the AHL and IIHF to get this figured out. Andrew, we're December, right? We're now, 65 days away from a puck drop on February 10th for the first men's game. So they have to get this figured out soon because, again, if you're the NHLPA, are you going to say, after what you saw at Four Nations, right, the war of atrocities that happened with a few players getting destroyed in that event back in February, are they comfortable enough to say, hey, players, we don't want you to get hurt again and then become a Matthew Tkachuk where you're out until December, or guys who aren't healthy enough going towards a stretch run? So, look, I'm not saying people are going to drop out, and say we're not going to play, but there has to be a discussion with the PA, IIHF, and the NHL whether or not this is going to be workable going towards Milan.
Well, it better happen. I mean, if we have been talking about this the entire time and having competence on the planning of the IOC to be the reason why we don't get the best on best tournament that we've been waiting for over a decade.
Yeah.
Well, they better figure out something else. They've got the break in the tournament. These games better happen, whether they're Olympic games or whether they call it something else. And I will say, to defend the National Hockey League, this is not their event. They have been sort of kept out of it the entire time. And unfortunately, they maybe should have had a little bit more say and allowed to work with them a little bit more, because I have a feeling that they wouldn't be in this situation right now. But it is sort of the elephant in the room as we talk about who's going to be on the team. Well, wait a second. Are these games going to actually happen? And will we have hockey in Italy coming up?
I'll tell you a funny story. My cousin bought tickets. He has tickets to the gold medal final on the Sunday for the Olympics. And I don't know I haven't spoken to him yet, but I will speak to him soon enough to ask him, what's your mindset right now if they move the games from Milan to another spot, if they can't play them in Italy next February? Yeah,
something tells me, I mean, if they just say, hey, you know what, we're going to figure this out. We're going to put it, will it still be the Olympics? Will the tickets be on? I mean, that is a nightmare that I don't even want to wrap my head around, but just figure it out. And even if it's 196 feet as opposed to 200, I mean, we'll still be here for it. Back to the Habs for a minute.
Yeah.
Incredible season last year for Lane Hudson. Where's he at right now? And tell us about Noah Dobson, who, of course, was the big offseason addition that seems to be really fitting in well with his new contract on the right side of that top line with another defenseman that just got paid.
Yeah, look, Lane has played well enough, but I think, as you know, Andrew, year two, there's a book on you and how well you are, what you do well, what you don't do well. And there's been a couple of hiccups this year where he's had a couple of giveaways where he's misplaced on the ice and there's an on-mad rush going the other way for a goal or high percentage chance for the opposing team. Look, Lane Hutson is a fantastic player. His passing vision, his skating ability on the ice is second to none on this team beside maybe Noah Dobson. But they have a foundation piece to work with. Now, the question for Lane Hutson is that what does he do to elevate his next part of the game in year two? I mean, look, what he did last year was unbelievable. No one would have projected to see the number of assists that he had. And to top that would be tough to do in year two, but I think he has those tools. He's not a Makar, okay? He's not going to be at that level, but he's definitely in the next section of the dominant defenseman out there that could get you 60, 70 points a year and be a perennial for the Norris, down the road. So I think for Lane Hutson, I think people have realized we can't expect him to be Nick Lindstrom or anything of that level, but he has great, great potential to be the next foundation piece for this organization. And then lastly, for Noah Dobson, I think what he brought to this team is leadership, accountability, and some sandpaper. That's been lacking in the back line. Once David Savard went out and retired out the season, they brought in Dobson to say, look, he's the last piece of the back line that we were missing. And he's brought that all to there. And look, for the salary they're paying him right now, that's probably the going market right now for back-end players at that level entering the prime of the career. So I think for Noah Dobson, Andrew, there's no doubt he's been obviously a A-, if not high B-plus player with more to give. But look, this back line for the Canadiens moving forward, plenty of depth to work with. The question now is for Ken Hughes, does he give up some of the prospects to maybe get himself a goaltender or a 2C down the road?
Well, it's a fascinating matchup tonight between two teams that desperately need points and a win tonight. We got the oldest team in the NHL, the youngest team in the NHL, and two fan bases that probably are in very similar situations, just hoping their team could figure it out fast and get back in the win column. Mo, always great to catch up with you, my friend. I hope you enjoy the game tonight, and let's catch up soon. Have a great holiday season.
You too, my guy. And my hair will be better next time. It's just I'm letting it grow out, actually. So it's entering that weird phase the first 3 months. So when I see you next time, it'll be more slick back. I'll show you that.
I can't wait. You're always bringing it, pal. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, my man. Happy holidays.
There's Moe Khan. You can give him a follow on X over at Moe Khan 19. Now we're going to dive back into the Jet side of things with Kevin Sawyer coming up in just a couple minutes. I do want to thank our friends at Princess Auto, wishing them a big happy holidays. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, the Jets, Princess Auto Stadium, and so many other things in our Winnipeg community. Princess Auto, founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg and now serving Canadians coast to coast, but with 3 Manitoba locations that serve you: Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and out in Brandon. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So pop by and see them in store today ahead of the holidays, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Our friends at Chud's Power Sports are ready for the holidays. And you know what else they're ready? They're ready for the snow to come. Right now, the Gift of the Outdoor holiday sales event is on at Chud's Power Sports, where you can save up to $3,000 on select Polaris snowmobiles and financing as low as 0% for 60 months. With the snow coming here, it's not just Polaris. Amazing preseason deals on Arctic Cat sleds as well. Not to mention holiday must-haves this December, including ATVs, side-by-sides, personal transportation, and commercial XTVs, including things like those Argo and Sasquatch vehicles, boats and outboards. You can get yourself off-season savings on Low Mercury and Suzuki Marine. And with ice fishing season, RVs and fish houses, so you can cozy up on the ice or hit the holiday highways in comfort. It's all waiting for you at the Snowman Dealership of the Year. Chud's Power Sports, 80 years in the business with the most trusted and experienced staff in the game. Check them out in Gimli at the corner of Highway 8 and 231, or online at Chud's Power Sports. And check out TrueNorthParts.com as well. We've got an incredible parts selection where you can find out what you're looking for. We've also got amazing deals on clearance gear and accessories that you won't find anywhere else. True North Parts for that. And just before we bring in Kevin Sawyer, I'll be honest, Donnie and the Manitoba Battery guys would have been helpful at KeyBank Arena on Monday night because the Jets really needed a boost. Hopefully that boost comes tonight. But for your car or truck this winter, don't be the guy needing that boost. Power up for Christmas and give the gift of power right now and get ready for winter before winter beats you. Manitoba Battery is your local option for the best prices in town, period, on batteries for your cars or trucks to get you through the Winnipeg winter. And right now they've got great holiday deals, including $5 to $10 off power sport batteries, $10 to $20 off booster packs, a $99 ice fishing flasher combo, as well as booster cables, 12 footers for under $20, and of course, gift cards as well. For all your battery needs, keep it local, save money, and get the best deals in town at Manitoba Battery, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive. Citywide delivery available inside the perimeter as well. And you can order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's welcome in our guy, Kevin Sawyer, who is on the road in a little different game day today because it is not a TSN game. Kevin joins us now. Kev, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. It almost feels like a paid vacation here a little bit. No game tonight for us, so I'll just be in the press box watching and preparing for our Buffalo game coming up on TSN, of course, in a few days. But I couldn't be better. We stay in pretty nice places, Huss.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a good guy. I wasn't sure whether you guys would be on the road, but of course you started off, and then. Well, I'll ask you this, Kevin, because normally you're in between the benches and right in there. You had a very different perspective for a pretty ugly hockey game on Monday night for the Winnipeg Jets. What was it like, not being on the air talking about it and watching what transpired for the Jets in a game that we really hoped they'd build off that win in Nashville, and it was the exact opposite?
Well, first, as a broadcaster, you never really want to highlight negatives. So in some ways, I think Dan and I were like, okay, we'll sit this one out. That's fine. It's amazing to me from watching from the press box. It's amazing what you can look for and pay attention to when you're not tasked with, conversing with your producer, your director to tee up the next replay. What are we doing on the next whistle? Are we going to break? There's a bit of there's a lot of collaboration going on. So I can look deeper and just little things like, who's taking faceoffs on the right dot in the D zone versus the left versus offensive zone, or like when there's a deep pinching down the wall in the offensive zone, do we have a high enough guy to cover for that? You see things more clearly and differently. What stood out for me, Huss, is within a minute, 2 minutes, you could tell immediately, like they're not on. And it's amazing to me. It's hard to explain, but that's not to say that the game was destined to end the way it did, but you can tell right away that the pace or the level of thinking, the mental speed wasn't there. And well, we all saw the results.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, we heard from Scott Arniel afterwards, and it was like, listen, the game in Carolina was ugly, and he was hot afterwards. I mean, it was more dejected and disappointed afterwards. And, I would imagine that yesterday, with it being a travel day and whatnot, sort of some real soul searching for everybody in that dressing room, coaching staff, but certainly players as well. And of course, this coming out of, a closed door players only meeting after the game. When you were a player, were you involved in many of those? And sort of take us behind the scenes as to, what happens in one of those and how can it hopefully create a much better, more focused, committed team playing with a sense of urgency coming out of that one tonight?
Yeah, I've been involved in a few of those over the years, whether it's in the American League or the NHL. And you might think that after those closed door meetings that you're going to see, kind of like droopy faces and maybe bad body language. The opposite is usually true. And I was downstairs after the doors open, and listen, nobody's celebrating, but in those meetings, that's where honestly growth happens. That's where you bond more than any other times is you celebrate the good times, and it's easy to be together then. But when things aren't going well, that in life, we all know, like you are who you are when no one's looking, and when adversity hits you, how you deal with it. So I got the sense that maybe some of the guys that I saw came out of that room with a bit of a lighter feeling, in the sense that, okay, we're all on the same page. There's no doubt in my mind that there's complete buy-in here. There's no doubt. Buy-in doesn't go away that quickly, and we know the amount of buy-in this team has needed over the last couple of years to be who they've been. Well, they're not that right now, but I don't sense at all that the buy-in isn't there. So, it's an opportunity for them to kind of take some accountability and take control of this. Coaches only have so many bullets they can fire. And whether they're right or they're wrong, they can't keep saying the same things the same way because they'll get tuned out. Scott Arniel knows that. All coaches at this level understand that. So my guess is that Scott Arniel was probably okay, more than okay with a closed door meeting. And I'm guessing that the players took the opportunity to say, listen, let's grow here as brothers. And I mean, time will tell, but that's the first good step. I know that Carolina had a closed door meeting at the end of October as well. And they turned things around for themselves. And it was at Carolina? No, there was another team. I'm making a mistake there. But there was a team in the NHL that was not off to a good start. We just played them. You can help me. But
Minnesota,
anyway,
maybe?
It was Minnesota. Thank you very much. Where they went 3-8-3, and then they had that closed door meeting. Thanks, Huss. And then they took off. So
they've been the best team in the league outside of Colorado since that meeting.
I'm not saying that I'm anticipating that. I'm not here because of the systemic things that I'm seeing. I don't think are going away because of a closed door meeting, but I think that you can all get on the same page and try to get one step closer to who this team needs to be. I still think that they're trying to figure that out, where in the last few years we knew who they were. How are you going to win? What identity do you have? Well, right now this team does not have much of an identity. And so I think that's the next big step is like, do we need to look at this here, look at the sum of our parts and maybe tweak the way we play? Time will tell.
You know, the one thing on Buffalo, and it was kind of interesting, you know, with it being a prime broadcast, and I mean, these guys aren't seeing the Winnipeg Jets very much. And if you just hadn't seen either of these teams and rolled into that arena and watched it, you would have maybe been aghast that the team had 13 wins already, to be perfectly honest with you. But the constant theme of it was just how slow the Jets looked in that game and how far off of the puck catching up and how easily the Buffalo Sabres kind of did what they wanted in transition, in moving the puck up. And I mean, Kevin, we've watched this team for the last couple of years. That is so far away from its identity. I mean, where does it start to getting back on track for this team?
That's the question. And I think that's the question that all of us are searching for, like the stump of the tree. For me, you know, I have an opinion on they look like they're 10 miles away, 10 miles off in timing. But I don't think that that's the case. I think things get amplified because, and I mean this with all due respect, but this is my opinion. I feel like this team won last year and the year before were the best defensive team. It was because of pace. It was because they were able to not just skate faster than any other team. They were one of the faster teams with their feet, but it was more about like all five guys being able to make decisions, and they were playing a paced game, and that brought them success because even whatever mistakes they made, they could make up for it with the other four guys, and they were able to make up for it with team pace and that team idea. Well, what I'm seeing is the same team that is not as fast with their feet is trying to play the same way. And so now you're making the same decisions, but you're not quite quick enough to make up for little mistakes. And there's little mistakes all over the place. Both teams make them. But they become amplified because you're playing the right way. Sometimes they're not making the right reads, but you get caught between two decisions when you get beat time and time again, and now they look extra slow. They're not as slow as they look, but that's a combination of being a slower team. There's no denying that this year, but also making decisions that they can't win. And so, you know, maybe the days of four guys being up in the offensive zone all the time and deep pinching down the wall, keeping them, you know, like I'll use the LA Kings as an example. That was a team, and they've changed with Jim Hiller recently, but they were a 1-1-3 team to the neutral zone, and they would almost bait other teams to make mistakes, where the Jets are a team that force teams to make mistakes. Well, in doing so, they're getting caught. And so that to me is where this starts. You can pick up, the D they weren't gapped up, or the forwards weren't quick enough, or they made a bad read. Or, all that's true, but to me it comes from the fact that they're making paced decisions in their system, and they just don't seem to be fast enough to play that way.
Quite the challenge tonight, considering what we saw on Monday night, where there was a team that was playing at, you know, a gear above the Winnipeg Jets. You're going to get up against a similarly struggling but very young and very fast team against the Montreal Canadiens. And I mean, if you want to show that you're much better than what happened on Monday night, this seems to be a pretty good opportunity to do that, including a team that, of course, played last night.
Yeah, so you're catching them on a back-to-back, no travel. For me, I think that when the Jets have been at their best. And I've said this many times in the broadcast, where they led by the Mark Scheifele line, to be quite frank, where the beginning of games, Carolina was one of them that came to mind. I thought they were excellent in the first period. Scott Arniel didn't like the first shift of every line on that game, but they played well in the first and the second until it fell apart. They got the puck low. They got the puck below the hash marks, and they forced the other team to defend, and they were scoring that way from below the hash marks. Now you can go low to high. I think tonight that we're going to see that, and that is going to be, to me, the keystone of their game plan. They're going to force Montreal's defense and Montreal's smaller skill guys to have to support low, spend their gas in their own zone. I think this game is going to be one of the games, more than any other that we've seen lately, if the Jets can hit their game plan by chip, chase, grind, cycle, low to high, get to the net. I don't think that we're going to look at a team that's going to try to play faster and win that way. I think they're going to try to be faster. I think they're going to try to get this game on the wall and try to grind one out here to try to find a way back in the win column. And that's when they've been at their best so far this year, not when they were trying to play that pace game like we've seen them do so well.
TSN broadcaster Kevin Sawyer with us live from Montreal before tonight's puck drop between the Jets and the Montreal Canadiens. One of the other things, and I mean, yesterday's show was, I mean, you can imagine where fans were at after that game. I mean, people were already sort of, bent about the last month, and then you get hit with that one. And, Arnie himself said after the game, that, everything is on the table. So as we talk about everything being on the table, it's split up the top line, it's call up guys from the Moose, it's make a trade, all of these things. And I thought Murat, it certainly in retrospect made a very excellent point. Said, you know what, I think with that players only meeting, I don't think you're going to see I don't think they're going to blow up that top line for this game tonight. I think they give them an opportunity to get back out there afterwards and see how things go. But you expected some changes to the lineup. What do you make of Nyquist sitting for the first time this year and Cole Koepke getting back in, and both Schenn and Miller being out? Elias Salmonson now for the first time slides in on the third pairing on his right side with Logan Stanley, and Neil Pionk back with Dylan Sandberg.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you're right. I think that they want to have some continuity here, but at the same time, I mean, you got to shake things up. As far as Nyquist goes, this might be almost, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but in some ways you can view this as a relief. I mean, the poor guy, the effort's there. It's just not happening. Not even close, really. So maybe an opportunity just to kind of release the pressure, take a breath, and go back in and start again. But the fact remains, you say what you want. He was supposed to be their second line right winger. And it required him to be at his very best, which he hasn't been for over a year now, to give that line a chance. So I think shaking it up in that way makes some sense. What doesn't make sense to me is you still don't have a quick strike, dangerous guy on that second line. And we can get to that later. But to me, that's a big, big deal here. That is a trickle-down effect that is affecting a lot. I mean, the absence of Nikolai Ehlers and how that's changed the dynamics and how that's allowed other teams to match differently, and how it's taken some chemistry away from what I think could have been the best fourth line in the NHL with four different players, Nemestikov, Barron, Koepke, and Tanner, whatever that combination may be. I like the fact that Salomonson's in. I'm not going to be surprised at all if this kid stays up for the rest of the year. I think he's shown enough. I think he's got the feet. I think they need more of that. He's going to be able to get up the ice quicker with more confidence and as he makes better reads. Listen, I think that Luke Schenn is a hell of a teammate, and I think he brings something that nobody else can. But if you're on a team that's trying to get quicker, and I'm not putting this on the D. As a matter of fact, that to me, this is more on the forwards than anything. But I mean, these changes make some sense to me, and it doesn't cry, oh boy, like Armageddon and we're blowing this up, but change is required. And I think these moves make some sense.
Just thoughts on Elias's first couple of games in the league. Like there were some moments where I think we realized why he's been the prospect that he was. I don't think it should be a surprise that a young man playing against a team like Carolina or Washington right off the bat might have a couple moments, but Well, what did you think about Elias, and you think that he might be in for a bit of a longer look right now?
Yeah, like immediately, the thing to me that you look at is, to me, the feet and the head. Like, can you think the game? And I think that there's no question that he can. I mean, was he at an AHL level for some of those plays and maybe expecting things at that pace? Yeah, and that's fair. You put Elias Salomonsson in the lineup last year with the way this team played, and some of those mistakes don't even get talked about because they get making up for. They get, he pinches, gets caught flat-footed. There's a good chance that the team can absorb that based on the way they played. Maybe not, but I think that his look and his experience last year would have been completely different. It's no different than Jonathan Toews, to be totally honest with you. You put a guy that's trying to either establish his game like Salomonsson, or Toews that's trying to get his game back. And, oh, by the way, team doesn't have their game. And they don't have an identity that they're playing towards nightly. They don't have the consistency. They're not playing well. And so, having said that, I think Salomonsson showed really well. And this kid's going to be an NHLer for a long time. There is no doubt about that. Talking to a few of the guys, in the coaching staff, and I mean, they're impressed with him. Yeah, he's got to show that trajectory of being able to think the game at a higher level and making sure that he understands when you can stand and press versus back up and gap up. All those things are going to come. I'm impressed with them. They got a good one here. They really do.
Kevin, we heard Scott O'Neill after morning skate today talk a little bit about Jonathan Toews, and just certainly, his impact, with the club off of the ice. But I'm interested in your thoughts on just, the overall struggles of secondary scoring, but also where Toews is at. I mean, we all thought, let's give 25 games and see where things at. Let's see where things are at into the new year. I actually really liked his first kind of dozen games or so. I was surprised at how far along that he was. Is this just the grind of a season on an older player right now? Or is this a bigger part of the lack of connectivity between really the bottom nine, as long as that top line is together?
Yeah, so I felt like that Jonathan exceeded my expectations out of camp, based on, the challenge, the age, the time off. And then as the regular season started, I feel that, he didn't knock anybody's socks off, but he exceeded my expectations when you look at the overall game. And now the last 10 games, I mean, he's plateaued. There's no doubt that trajectory has now leveled. And so here's the thing. It's easy to throw ifs in, and I hate to keep bringing Nikolai into this equation, but it matters, because if Nikolai was there, Cole Perfetti's game would be different, because Nikolai is a star player, and he has an effect on the game. He's never scored 30 goals before, but he's allowed other players to make plays, and because of the threat of speed. If that was there for Jonathan Toews, that gives him something to say, okay, I can build something around this. I know who I have to be on this line, and now he can work towards being that. And to me, that was a perfect fit, because win faceoffs, make the play, good defensively, etc. Well, they don't have the dynamic, and there's been a rotating cast, and to me, that's really hurt his trajectory to getting back to being an impactful player. Because I don't put it on Jonathan Toews to have to carry a line at this stage. I don't. Even though he's won 3 Stanley Cups, Olympic gold medals, he's a Hall of Famer. It shouldn't be up to him to carry a line or to drive a line. He should be a part of that. They don't have a driver. And so it's made him look slower. I mean, he's not a speed guy. He's never been that to be who he is, but it's made him look slower. There's a little bit of question marks or guessing going on the ice. And I'll tell you right now, as a player that was a fourth line guy, that, I wasn't a speed demon either, but when you knew what your line mates were doing and you knew who you had to be out there, it was actually kind of easy to look fast. I know when he gets it on the far side, I'm taking off, I'm slashing. He's going to chip it. I'm hitting it with full speed. I'm going to chip and chase, and I look like $1 million, right? That's what I do, and we know that we do it. I don't think that's happening right now for Jonathan, and I don't put it on his shoulders. It's just it's just another example of how this team right now, the team doesn't have an identity. That second line, whoever I don't know who they are. Who's the second line? They don't have an identity yet either, and that makes it really hard for a centerman who's not built with speed, that's missed that kind of time to look spectacular.
I mean, when we're talking about lines with identities, the one that you can always count on is the Adam Lowry line. And, you know, I it's kind of funny. He's been back for probably, about 10, 12 games or so. And I thought it took him about 5 periods to kind of get in. And that next 5 games looked great.
Yeah.
That line hasn't looked as good, frankly, close to it over the course of this road trip for the most part. And that's a little puzzling, Kevin, because those are the guys that have been doing it together for a long time. And, you know, as recently as a week or two ago, I thought looked really good. Any thoughts on that? And is that just part of a bigger, like when a team is struggling overall, can that kind of impact lines that are usually pretty reliable and you know what you're going to get more often than not when you throw them out there?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it requires not only Adam, but Al and Nino to be at their very best as well. And there's a residual effect here, I do believe. I mean, when that line isn't on, it's sure noticeable, that identity line. It's hard for me to describe. The one thing that I will say, though, is other teams now are not afraid they're not afraid of our second line. So you're getting less favorable matchups. Other teams are going about things a little bit differently here. So I think lines are seeing different opponents. But I think that it's just, when your team isn't right, it's hard. Like I felt like Adam's line was the best line when this team was struggling a couple of weeks ago. But eventually when your team is skating into the wind, eventually everybody seems to be skating into the wind. And but it's hard to explain. I think you're right. And to be fair, that line, to me, that's the way that line needs to be built. I like those 3 together. I think that gives that line a chance to defend against the best and score too. And they haven't been doing that at the level that they need to, but it's kind of more of the same, which is puzzling. Confidence is a real thing and it's contagious in that room. And when you're around guys that are feeling good and you're feeling it as a team, that's contagious. And that's why it's so hard to change a culture. And when you have a good culture, sometimes you get away with things because of momentum and confidence. And the same is true when you don't have it and you're in a room where you got guys where as a captain, you're like, this is up to me in a lot of ways to find a way to get this group that's going quiet, that's struggling. And that can be hard on a man and it affects everybody. So yeah, no doubt right now this team isn't feeling it. Confidence isn't bursting. And that is when, to me, you simplify.
Just on that, I mean, and especially maybe I'll say this just because I know that it was Adam Lowry, the captain, that sort of led the, we're shutting the door and we're getting it done out. I would be really surprised if that line in particular, we'll see what happens with the overall team, but I would be really surprised if early in that game, we don't notice that Adam Lowry, Alex Iafallo, and Nino Niederreiter have come to play and are going to try and be a force of change within that group to lead the way. I mean, that's what your leaders are supposed to do. To me, I'm going to be looking at the first few shifts from that line tonight because I think that'll be a good indicator as to whether they can kind of set the tone for the rest of the bottom 9 to hopefully follow.
You know what? That's a good point, and I bring it farther than that. You look at the core of this team. And the guys that have been here the longest, the guys that they've built the team around. And so Adam Lowry, there's no doubt. You call a closed door meeting, it's going to be more of the same. Adam has always lived up to his words and up to, like who he is as a person and as a player. But you look to Scheifele, Connor. I think Josh Morrissey has been trying to will this team to wins. He's been excellent. You look to guys that have been around to make a significant difference, whether it's in effort, physicality, making the right decisions, extra passion. Somehow those core guys, whether all of them or one of them at a time, has to find a way to say, this is no ordinary game. This is a big game. Follow me. Everybody has to find another level, but those guys, these are the games where they're laying in bed right now thinking about every little thing that is going to make them their absolute best, because this is a big game. There's no doubt.
I'm glad you brought up Morrissey because as brutal as that game was pretty much from start to finish on Monday, there was a point in the second period when, and it reminded me of that St. Louis game a couple of years ago, which we often talk about, where he scored and get the hell up. That was a home game.
Yeah.
But if you recall that play, he had it and he Harlem Globetrotted a guy with this stick. I mean, back and forth, turn it around. And he, of course, was the shot that ended up getting deflected and got them on the board. And it seemed like Josh almost was trying to put the team on his back at that point and get them back into the game. And they got that goal. And obviously, you know, you don't like the Tuck goal. Arniel spoke about it. I mean, a breakdown, not just on goaltending, but of the players as well. And that sort of took out any momentum that they had after those couple of shifts. But if we're talking up front about the Lowry line, sort of going out there, getting back to what they do well and setting the tone, I'm expecting a real noticeable performance from Josh Morrissey tonight, because he is a truly elite player, and we've seen him before when his team needs it the most. He's been there, and I would suggest that this is as dire a situation as this team's been facing going into a mid-season, regular season game in a long time.
I'll start here. Like, I see Josh in the gym, in the sauna all the time. He's in the gym, in the hotels all the time. So probably see him more than anybody else. And he wouldn't like to hear this. It was not like I'm creeping him, but it's hard to not pay attention to the little details where he, like, you know, activates his hips, and he does all the things from head to toe to get himself ready. This is on game day. He's so aware of what he has to do to get himself better. He's so aware, sometimes to a fault, to be quite frank with you, with Josh, but it served him extremely well. Maybe at times it might hurt him a little bit, but he's so aware of all things necessary to be elite. He's an Olympian. He's going to be an Olympian. And no different, he'll be aware, and he is aware about how important this game is for this team. He is aware about how important he is as a leader on this team in his own way. And he's by far their best defenseman. And although, like I say, I don't know that he can find very many more steps here, because I saw it in Buffalo. I've been seeing it consistently, and that's dangerous as well, where you try to do too much and now you're out of structure and you're trying to win games on your own, and you can't win that way. But I think Josh, I think we're going to see another one of those efforts. I could see at the end of this game that we could be talking about guys like Mark Scheifele took hold of this game by the throat. Josh Morrissey took hold of this game by the throat. You know, we can talk about Adam Lowry, and he needs to be and will be a man out there among boys, but it's got to be your Mark Scheifele's, it's got to be your Kyle Connors and your Josh Morrissey's. They're the ones that really have to get this thing going, and Josh shows signs of that, and he really stood out for me in Buffalo.
Speaking of that top line, I mean, you know, when you have the power outage that's happening below them, you know, many teams would have shaken things up and blown up that top line and changed things beforehand. I kind of feel, and as I said, I keep going back to what Murat said yesterday, which I think is playing out. They're going to give them a chance tonight to show what they can do, you know, together and the rest of that group below them. If this game doesn't go well for the Winnipeg Jets and they don't get the result they're looking for, how likely do you think that this lineup might look significantly different, regardless of who's in or out, but just in the makeup of the lines when the team gets home for Buffalo on Friday?
It's coming. I mean, if things don't get corrected, it's coming. It has to, because what do you have to lose at that point? I mean, listen, those guys are able to maybe pull another line into the fight. And it's terrible to even think about, because they've been so impactful. It's coming, and you have no choice at a certain point. I actually like the fact that Scott Arniel is stuck by what he's done in the process that he's gone through. I mean, you're trying to make, you know, chicken salad a little bit sometimes, but you're keeping that together. But you can't be stubborn as a player. And I don't think you can be for a coach for too long. So that's getting a little ahead of ourselves, because I think that they're going to keep them together. And like you said, I agree. But I think it would be as early as next game against Buffalo, if things don't go well, that they've got to really shake it up and try to get those guys to get the other lines going.
Kevin Sawyer's been with us. Kev, before we go, and thanks again for the time. I'll always love these conversations, especially on a game day with you being on the road after a trip that has so many people talking about the club. How much have you been talking just in the media folks in and around the rink about what's going on with the Olympic Games and the rink? Like, I'm just looking, Matt Larkin, this just popped up, and I guess he had the chance to, he asked Bill Daly, what's the actual percentage chance NHLers don't go to the Olympics? He says, depends on percentage you want to place on the possibility the rink doesn't get completed. if there's no rink completed, there's no NHL players going to the Olympics. I mean, it is insane that we're having these conversations right now in December, counting down to the beginning of it. And then this word that the rink is actually smaller than NHL size as well. Has that been a big topic amongst people in and around the rink?
Well, no, I wouldn't say a big one just because there's so many other things to talk about, but we've talked about it. Like, it feels like something out of the 1980s for me, where it's like, what? Like, this is such a big deal. It's such a big moneymaker. It's global, on top of the fact that we haven't had Olympic hockey since 2014. And there's no plan B. I still can't understand, with all the things and all the different layers of business and planning and all, that they don't have a plan B here. I don't get it. And I don't know how they wouldn't have every construction company in Italy and Switzerland and everything around getting that. I don't get it. So yeah, I wish I had answers. I mean, we're all scratching our heads, but could you imagine all that has been talked about and they don't go because they don't have a sheet of ice to skate on?
I get mad just thinking about it.
Me too.
Like, just as a hockey fan, we've waited for over a decade to see the best on best. And we got a taste of it last year with the Four Nations, and it was incredible. And to think that it might be the all-time buzzkill of all time. All-time
buzzkill, isn't it? I got a buddy in Winnipeg, Dan Card, good dude. And he just texted me today. He goes, guess what, brother? I got tickets to the gold medal game in Italy. And I'm like, and then I said, well, assuming there's going to be one.
Cross your fingers.
Like, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm sure you can check out some speed skating and see Rachel Homan dominate curling if you're out there. But the hockey's sort of a big deal. And then the other thing, like just, I don't even want to think about it. But for a moment, imagine that the rink doesn't get built and the hockey doesn't happen. Like, what does that do to the broadcaster agreements? I mean, like, I don't know. It's probably like TSN and CBC and all that they're putting in. Like, the Olympic Games are always huge. This hockey, at least here in North America, is going to be the event, huge gap, everything else. I mean, the business aspect, like the fallout from that is insane.
Let me throw something at you here, just because as wild as this is that we're even having this conversation, all the teams are preparing for this. They're scouting. I see them at every game. I saw Don Sweeney the other day. They're ready for this. Would it be that wild, considering how wild this could be, that all the hockey teams just say, okay, well, we're not a part of the Olympics, but we're going to have a best-on-best tournament anyways.
They better do that.
We'll just find another place to do it. Like, we got the broadcasters, we got the cameras, we got everything. Let's just go do it somewhere else. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be more surprised that they didn't play.
Moe Khan was on with us, and I guess wherever the last Olympic Games were, I guess in London, there was no no place where you could do surfing. So they literally had the Olympic Games in Tahiti, like those events there. I mean, maybe they say somewhere else in Europe or somewhere they can do it, but these games must go on. And whether they're for an Olympic gold or whether we call it the 12 Nations tournament, whatever.
Call it what you want. Call it what you want.
It has to happen. Well, we can stress about that as we go forward. Most of the stress around here is around our hockey team and this big game tonight. Kevin, thanks so much for doing this today. Have a safe flight back afterwards, and we'll look forward to seeing you and Dan back on the broadcast Friday night for hopefully a little revenge game against the Buffalo Sabres back at home. And then crazy, right back out to Edmonton the night afterwards, and then 3-3. This is, I think, I was doing the math, I think the most condensed 3 weeks I can ever remember a Jet team playing in the last 15 years.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, the schedule. We all knew it was going to be crazy. Just on a side note, personally, so normally I would fly home to go see my partner and to go see my kids and my family, but everybody's scattered around the world right now. So I'm on a 5-game road trip. We've done 1 game, and I'm taking heat over this. But hey, I'm okay with this. I'm getting a lot of sauna time, a lot of gym time, and a little gin time as well. It's been a crazy schedule.
Well, I'll tell you what, I hope that things are back to normal on Friday with the team playing better. You guys behind the broadcast booth, and hopefully some fans leaving Canada Life Center happy. But it sure would be nice to try to build off a win tonight, because this just feels like one that you got to find a way to do it. I don't even want to think about the show tomorrow, frankly, if they don't win.
Don't call me. Don't call me if it doesn't go well. They'll get her going.
Yeah, you got it. Hey, pal, thanks so much for doing this again. We'll look forward to seeing you back in Winnipeg on Friday.
Let's talk soon. Thanks, man.
Good stuff. There's Kevin Sawyer, TSN, he and Dan. And I wasn't sure. I was listening to 690 for a little bit this morning, just for a little bit of, what's going on with the Habs. And our pal Dan was on. So then I'm like, wait a second, the guys are in Montreal. So anyways, we've got great to have Kevin on the program. Always appreciate his contributions. And Dan's, I think, been in the chat as well. Dan, if you're there, great performance today with the fellas. Those Danny Markov stories were absolutely hilarious. All right, we're going to bring in the Hammer coming up in just a minute. Get his thoughts on the Jets, as well as what's going on in the CFL offseason. Of course, we did the lines earlier, but they are always brought to you, as is Winnipeg Sports Talk, by Cleanline Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years in both residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical, and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. As you've seen Adam Lowry at the back of the Winnipeg Jets, Cleanline has the back of Winnipeggers and Manitobans with 24/7 emergency services for plumbing, heating, and electrical. When you need to clean the pipes, lean on Cleanline, as Winnipeggers and Manitobans have been doing for 40 years. Proud sponsors of WST and your Winnipeg Jets. Check them online at cleanline.ca. Shout out to our friends at Boston Pizza. I know the IC boys are going to be doing a show at BP, I believe Taylor tonight. Folks in the chat will have those details. Bit of a watch party for that. Our little holiday gathering and watch party is 2 weeks today, December 17th at Boston Pizza, Kenaston. So I hope you'll join us for that. Get a little bit of Christmas cheer and hopefully a win for the Winnipeg Jets. Right now, quick note, if you need some tasty gifts for family, friends, teachers, coaches, staff, pick up some BP gift cards. For every $50 BP gift card, you'll receive a $10 free card promo. And if you're looking to do a large gift card order for your office, you'll receive an extra 10% bonus on orders of $1,000 or more. And they do have a great cause, an event on Saturday at BP Kenaston. Fill the Freightliner, collecting food, winter clothing, donations all day in support of Shalom Mission. You'll have games, prizes, a chance to win 2 tickets to see the Jets and the Leafs on January 17th. So BP Kenaston, 11 to 5 on Saturday. Fill the Freightliner, and BP is where we'll see you 2 weeks today for the WST Holiday Watch Party on the 17th. And don't forget the IC guys cranking it up tonight. All are welcome at, I believe it's BP Taylor. All right. Our friends at Royal Sports are ready for the holidays, gang. And, of course, they had the massive Black Friday sale. They are continuing to sale on sticks. So many kids would love a new stick. They're expensive. Well, guess what? You can get up to 50% off over $250,000 in hockey sticks right now at Royal Sports. Just in time for Christmas. While you're there, you'll see the biggest selection of Winnipeg Jets merchandise anywhere. Winnipeg Blue Bomber gear, National Hockey League, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, international soccer, lots of Canada gear ahead of the World Cup, which might make a great gift. Not to mention great deals on shoes, athletic wear, the biggest snowboard department in town, and everything hockey, as they've been the hockey leader in the PEG for over 50 years. And don't forget all the cool stuff on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side, including the amazing Yeti section, which will certainly have some great gifts there as well. Get ready for Christmas and knock off so much off your list with one trip to Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And, of course, follow them on Instagram for the latest merchandise drop sale information at Royal Sports Winnipeg. All right, the Hammer's ready to go. Let's quickly give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, it's Hammer time on WST. Let's bring in our pal Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammer, what's up? How are you?
Not much, my friend. Just, what are we at? Are we at hump day yet? I feel like the days are blurring into each other.
They are. This is hump day. And I kind of feel, I'm like, is it Tuesday? Is it Thursday? Because, of course, the Jets played Monday. We're usually used to this Tuesday-Thursday schedule, but it is, in fact, Wednesday. And I know this. I got a busy rest of the week. I'm hosting that Hockey Helps the Homeless draft tomorrow night, which is always a fun event.
Awesome.
And then the Jets are back on Friday, and then a road game on Saturday. So it was nice to sort of take it easy last night and look ahead to these next few days. Listen, I want to get to some of the CFL offseason. But, I mean, you're all over this. What do you make of the present plight of the Winnipeg Jets coming off one of the more embarrassing losses in the 2.0 era, following up a miserable month for the team where they're learning to live without Connor Hellebuck and life hasn't been very good?
Yeah, I was, I like a lot of people, obviously watching a team that is falling short of high expectations after such a strong regular season last year. I was talking to one of my best buddies, Ev, this earlier today, and he's a guy I kind of go to for hockey as my group of friends or whatever, and we're just talking about the Jets and kind of getting a pulse on him, season ticket holder, all those things, and yeah, it's kind of just a waiting for things to turn around kind of attitude. I think when you look at some of the issues, it's pretty easy to identify the problems with this team. Obviously, age and speed are major issues, and maybe should have understood that we were headed down this path, right? I mean, when you look at the offseason, when you look at what GM Kevin Cheveldayoff did in the offseason and who he lost in the offseason, I think this team, the vibe I get is that he viewed this team as kind of ready to go, right? It was already, they liked their leadership core, the growth, I imagine, from not just last season, the last two seasons where they were the stingiest team in the NHL as far as allowing goals. I think there was a lot of trust in that group to bring along maybe add on some veteran experience and be a team that was going to be climbing the standings, or at the very least be a team that was going to compete for a Stanley Cup. And fast forward 25 games, and there's a lot of concerns here, right? And there's some major problem areas. Obviously, Connor Hellebuck being out is a big one. We'll see how they continue to tread water here. Like, I thought it was interesting when he was out, like they were talking about, Chris Drieger being a guy who was, coincidentally, ended his KHL assignment at the same time as this kind of news happened. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, so like, why don't you get a real goalie? You know what I mean? Like, to me, I think the eyes are on Kevin Cheveldayoff now to salvage this thing, because clearly, you look at Scott Arniel. I mean, he looks borderline defeated. I keep reading about him being upset and fuming in the stories.
That was Carolina. It was very different after the Buffalo game.
Same stuff the last few games. But I watch him and he's just kind of like measured, right? It's like he doesn't want to piss these guys off. Rick Bowness had no problem. Could you imagine if Rick Bowness was coaching this team right now? Like, I think he would have had, a number of fits already. And that's not saying that that's the right path. It's just that clearly Scott Arniel is taking a different approach, and he's continuing to trust his players. But that trust is thinning out here over time. And when you have a lack of, it's one thing to kind of lose games, right? Obviously, those are always going to weigh on a team. But when you lose in the style that the Winnipeg Jets have been losing, it becomes more systematic than it is, maybe just a down issue. And when issues are systematic, you wonder how you're going to get out of them. They feel a lot more difficult. I know you spent a lot of time talking about team meetings, or that team meeting that Adam Lowry called, and the answer back wasn't that great. But at the same time, I mean, what can you expect, right? I mean, you have to play with the players. I mean, if it was a matter of just getting, a fire under your ass, I think this team would have already figured it out. I think this is a skill issue. And, whether it's banking too much on a guy like Jonathan Taves or not getting enough from a guy like Cole Perfetti. And I mean, I don't pick those two guys out because I think those two are the major issues. You could probably go up and down the lineup and talk about, players underperforming, right? So, I think you're 25 games in, Huss, and rather than talking about fighting in a difficult central division, the narrative has shifted to when are the kids going to be able to play? And I think that's a big thing here, Huss. Like, I think, and I was thinking about this as I mentioned that conversation with my friend earlier. Like, the thing that I brought up is it's time for the Jets veterans to welcome in, to usher in the new group, right? Remember when Josh Morrissey was making his way into the NHL and Dustin Byfuglien brought him under his wing and essentially gave him the confidence that he needed to be the player that he is today? You could say the same thing about Blake Wheeler with Mark Scheifele, right? He brought him into the mix and got him comfortable. Like, why isn't it Mark Scheifele that's bringing in some of the young guns and being that center, right? That all-around center. He's a guy who wants to play for Team Canada. Like, you should be able to make the people around you better. And so, I think that they need to start kind of branching that out. And same thing for Josh Morrissey, right? Like, Josh Morrissey can be the Dustin Byfuglien today. I mean, he's in the conversation for Norris Trophy candidates. Like, why isn't he bringing it like Salmonson into the mix and being his partner? Like, maybe those feel like big risks right now, given where they are in the standings. But, when you look at the sample size of what you've been doing with, I mean, I think something's got to give here. And maybe that is the answer here. Bring in some youthful exuberance and get this team feeling a little bit, quicker and better.
Oh, listen, it's hard. It was hard not to feel that way watching that Buffalo game. I mean, with them skating circles around the Jets and just looking old and slow and not necessarily engaged and certainly not playing with the sense of urgency. I 100% agree with you when it comes to Salmonson. I said it, yesterday, we need to get that guy back in and get him playing and give him a good run, because with all due respect to Colin Miller and Luke Shen and what he's done over the course of his career, it's not getting it done. It's not working right now. And I mean, what's the end game? You squeeze out another year of that and then you're at this point anyways? I mean, the best case scenario for the Winnipeg Jets to the second half of the season is a player like Salmonson comes in, gets comfortable, starts to really feel like an NHLer, and then can raise the level of play on the blue line and add something that they don't have right now on the pair that he's playing on. And to be honest with you, if it got to the point where he was able to, and I mean, taking a kid that's played 2 games and saying you're on the number 1 pairing and you're going to go 25 minutes a night with Morrissey, I think is a lot to hang on someone. And, there's risks that come with that. But at the same time, playing a regular shift right now, on your right side with Stanley in the 3rd pairing and getting that confidence is important. When it comes to the young players up front, I'm just not sure who those guys are right now. Like, it sure would be nice if we're looking at the Moose scores every night going, oh, wow, Brad Lambert had 2 goals and 2 assists. I mean, he's just forcing his way back up here. Like, that hasn't happened. No. And unfortunately, partly because of the fact that Jets have been a competitive playoff team for the last number of years, they've been aggressive with being willing to move that first-round pick to get assets that they thought would help them in the playoffs. There's not a lot of forwards right now within the organization in the AHL that are just sort of knocking on the door. I've got a lot of time for Parker Ford and Nikita Chibrikov. I mean, I would tell you right now that I think both of those guys could be an improvement on some of the guys that are taking up spots in the lineup. And I'll tell you what, if they don't win this game tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if those guys are back in as early as Friday. But there is a bit of, and this gets to a conversation depending on how this season goes, where if you're not going to be meeting your goals and you're not going to be a playoff team, management needs to pivot very quickly and, make some moves and try and gain a few more assets, whether that be picks, whether that be younger players that haven't yet played in the NHL that you believe have potential, because it's very clear, and I think this summer showed it more than any. Even when the Jets are a top team in the league, winning the President's Trophy, going to the second round, having people around the league going, hey, this is a really good team and they've got a chance to win, it is still very, very difficult to get guys to come here as free agents. There's a lot of teams that can pick the landscape of UFAs and give fair market value for guys to come in on 1-year deals. Well, the Jets got Gustav Nyquist, who's done nothing and is benched tonight. Tanner Pearson, who's had like 1 or 2 games where he's been impactful. I've actually got a lot of time for Koepke, but I mean, this is not a guy that's going to really change anything offensively. And obviously, the Taves was a gamble that right now hasn't paid off. I know some are holding out hope that there will be an improvement, but I mean, that is not the way that this team is going to pick themselves up through free agency. And at some point, you're going to have to swallow it and restock the cupboards, if you will. And right now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of guys just banging on the door. Certainly no one breaking it down to be a part of the lineup.
Us. What you just described is doomsday, my friend. Like, what do you mean talking about stocking the cupboards now? This is supposed to be the Winnipeg Jets window for a Stanley Cup champ. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
And I'm not saying it is right now. We're 25 games in. I mean, you could win 5 games in a row and we could look back and go, oh, yeah, well, that was a real tough stretch, but now they're playing well and we know they're better. I'm just saying that right now, like, this is the issue when we talk about younger, faster players. They don't have a lot of them.
This is the problem with that, Huss. Like, I mean, when you look at their lineup here, I mean, like, you know, I think about Kevin Sawyer and taking stock of this roster in the offseason. Okay, look, Adam Lowry, okay, ultimate captain. No doubt about it. You're not going to find many better guys in the NHL. And shout out to Mr. Dillon as well, Brendan Dillon, for the 1,000 games, another beauty in the NHL, just to mention that. But, you know, Adam Lowry, right? You re-up him for 5 more years. He just came off hip surgery, man. Hip surgery is literally the beginning of end for people's careers. I remember years ago when the Jets were trying to trade Andrew Ladd, Blake Wheeler slipped to me that he had double hip surgery in the offseason. And when I went back to him and said, hey, man, like, I'm not sure many people know about this double hip surgery. Was that a slip of the tongue? He, like, thanked me profusely for not mentioning it and not, you know, having it, because hip surgeries are tough. You know, it's like, you know, you're like a golden retriever, you know, like it's your hips, you know, as a player, your hips, as you skating styles, they wear down. You don't get a hip surgery and then you become a faster, better player. So, you know, I'm not saying Adam Lowry is going to, you know, plummet here, but he's not getting better. You look at Nino Niederreiter and Vlad Nemestikov, like, unbelievable contributions from them when you pick them up. But they're all into their 30s now. It's like they're not getting better either. And so when you decided to put this roster together and you try to, you know, wanted to fill in people, and I imagine there was some element of, we're going to let the young guys fight for these jobs, and, you know, and hopefully they can, you know, make hay in the preseason and maybe they play their way onto the roster. But how can you really say that when you sign veterans like Gustav Nyquist and Tanner Pearson, established guys? These weren't, you know, I'm not saying that they certainly aren't, you know, great forwards, but they aren't guys who are going to be in and out of the press box. They didn't come to Winnipeg to, you know, for a last ditch effort, right? They came here to try to compete and were probably promised some element of that. So when you factor in some of these moves here, Huss, you mentioned Braden, you know, like Shen and, like, you know, Logan Stanley, who I think is, you know, obviously hasn't been playing great, and I know he's a polarizing player, but he's had a little bit of offense this year. I mean, Dylan DeMello and Logan Stanley have more points than Jonathan Taves. So, you know, like, to me, it's a weird roster. It doesn't feel that same way as it did in previous years. And when you add in the fact that you no longer have your goalie, your best player, the reigning Hart Trophy winner, you're skating on pretty thin ice here, and you need to be, you know, you need to be on your P's and Q's. The issue with the Jets here is they just, you know, which you keep hearing from Scott O'Neill after games, is they have a blueprint, but they're not sticking to it. And when you don't stick to your blueprint, you don't have an identity. And when you start questioning your identity for a team that should be a cup contender, you might have already lost your season. So, you know, this is a really, really interesting situation for Winnipeg. As you mentioned, it's 25 games in. They could go, you know, it doesn't feel or look that way, but there's nothing stopping these guys from turning it around. So there is potential for a turnaround here, but, you know, something's got to give, you know, and it's, you know, if you know, player meetings or shuffling up lines. I mean, that's the other part, Huss. I mean, I know you've been talking about it a bit. Like, when are they going to break up that top line, right? I tweeted out the other day, like, and this wasn't just Scott O'Neill. I felt this way with Rick Bowness. Like, I almost feel they're not allowed to break up the top line. And my reasoning behind that is based on when they signed Mark Scheifele. Everybody thought he was going to get traded when they signed him. Kevin Sawyer was pretty clear about involving Mark in decision-making with the team and wanting to be a bigger part of it and whatever. And I think that meant that he wanted to play with Kyle Connor. Ditto when Kyle Connor re-upped. Then Kyle Connor re-upped and didn't want to play with his buddy Mark Scheifele. Like, that was the reason why he re-upped. There's no doubt about it. So, like, this reluctance is becoming super curious as to why they won't break these guys up. To my earlier point, that's a lot of firepower, and I get it. I know the argument is, well, this is the only line that's working. You cannot compete in the NHL with one line. I don't care how good they are. You can't compete in the NHL especially with the good teams. You might be able to get away with it, and surely we've seen that line win games for this team this year and in previous years, but they need to kind of share the wealth here. They need to get guys like Cole Perfetti going, right? Like Cole Perfetti's got to be the most polarizing player, in my opinion. Like 1 week, it's everyone screaming he should be locked up for 6 years, and then you watch him play for a stretch of games, and you wonder if he's even going to be part of the Jets' future, And so you need to get those guys going. It can't just be all about, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and that top line. It needs to be, a cohesive unit here, and they need to find a rhythm here. They're not going to, it's like taking that bottom nine, Huss, and juggling it around a bunch of guys who are all trying to find their games. Why don't you try to mix in some of the guys who appear to have their game in check right now, and again, share some of that wealth, because at the way they're trending right now, playing 500 hockey, it doesn't matter if your top line's a good line.
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly matters if you switching up a 9-man unit to a 12-man unit, and you go from one elite line to 4 lines that aren't doing anything. And I mean, there's a risk involved. I mean, everyone has to accept that, especially when you're getting the sort of performance that you have from that group. But I'll tell you right now, I think that if this game doesn't go the Jets' way, I would be willing to bet that line is not together to start the game on Friday night. Now, will they be together back at some point? Absolutely. I mean, it's like Old Faithful. But again, I mean, this is not like we're not planning for a month right now. They're trying to find a way to win a game and then build on that next one. And, you probably missed it earlier, but I mean, I thought Murat made what has truly been a pretty insightful point. I mean, we were ready to blow everything up yesterday. And this is not a new conversation. I mean, but hey, maybe we play Scheifele with somebody else or move Connor down and leave Velarde. Because I think Velarde, the reason why I have more time for this right now is that Velarde's playing really, really well. Like, before the thought of moving up splitting up Kyle and Mark, was that you had this dynamic duo that all of a sudden, okay, they got to find that guy on new lines. Well, if you've noticed, Velarde's been making some great plays. Obviously, he's been finishing. And, I have more time for thinking that Kyle Connor could go and be an impact player and help 2 other players be a more effective line. And you wouldn't lose everything from that top line like kind of was in the past. So that's why, I have more time for that. The bottom line was Murat's point was, listen, these guys are having their players only meeting. They're going to be given a game to show that they're a hell of a lot better than they were and take it from there. But there's no doubt. I mean, when Arneal said after the Buffalo game that everything was on the table, I think that was a very clear announcement to everyone that, even if we give this team post the players meeting this game tonight, if it doesn't look a hell of a lot better, there are going to be changes. And I think it'll be changes to both lines, as well as, everyone that was out of the lineup is in the lineup tonight. So they did what they had with themselves on the road to put into the lineup. And I think all moves I would have done. But if it doesn't work tonight and they don't have a better performance, then what we heard from the coach after the Buffalo game, with everything being on the table, happens, and then probably a call-up or two as well to try to get things going. Hammer, we don't have a ton of time right now, but what's the latest on the Bombers? Obviously, Mike Miller's now the head coach of the Toronto Argonauts, so no longer an option. You're hearing Tommy Condell. Are they talking to other players? What's percolating around the offseason for the Big Blue?
Yeah, I think it's, obviously like every team trying to figure out, looking at your roster right now that the whole situation with Mike is passed. They can sit down and look and identify, which free agents they want to bring back. That's always you've seen it with teams already. A lot of teams are announcing, some of the obvious high profile, free agents on their team. And I imagine the Bombers will be doing something similar. You do need to get, you do need to get your OC in place, though, right? You're not supposed to be signing players and bringing guys back without, an offensive coordinator. Well, might not have the final say in the decision making, should have a say. So we'll see what happens with there. This, like, if I had to guess, just knowing Mike, I imagine Zach is advocating for Tommy Condell. I know he's a big fan of him. Obviously, he was his offensive coordinator in Hamilton. He was a big advocate of him going to Ottawa. I'm sure he played a role in getting getting Tommy that role with the Red Blacks to take Drew Brown under his wing. So, and I think Zach would especially like Tommy Condell because Tommy Condell likes to throw the ball, right? We talked how often on CFL 110 about the number of passing attempts that Drew Brown had every week. And I know Zach has left certain games wishing that he was, throwing the ball a lot more. Now, I say that, how much longer is Zach going to be the quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, right? If he's here for another year, which is probably what it's trending to be. I don't know if he's got 2 years in him, but if he's here for another year, I mean, you're not signing Tommy Condell to a season, right? You're signing him to a multi-year contract.
Well, let me ask you this, Hammer. I mean, if it's a guy like Tommy Condell that's got the reputation of being a real pass-happy offense that's going to make a quarterback happy, what does that do to the possibility of bringing Brady Oliveira back?
Well, here's the thing, as much as he has that reputation, the Bombers also have an identity, right? And I mean, you can make the argument potentially here that that Tommy Condell hasn't had a running back like Brady, right? And Brady can certainly be part of the passing game and has been part of the passing game. It's an element of his game that's grown over the last few years. So it is interesting, and it is something I certainly considered, right? A guy who essentially abandons the run game when you have a running back who was begging and pleading for the ball last year, might not have Tommy Condell at the top of his list. That being said, it will be interesting. Jarius Jackson, what's wrong with him as an option too, as well, right? It might be him. All I know is that if they start making moves, they start signing players, it's probably going to be in-house, and probably would be Jarius Jackson. If they haven't made moves, they're clearly still thinking about it. Obviously, those decisions need to be made soon. You still have some time. This is kind of the dog days of the off season as we lead up to holiday season and whatnot. Again, you want to have some news. You want to, guys certainly want to get. Extended, so there's conversations happening from that side of things too, and it's just kind of figuring things out. But as I said before, it's not going to be similar to last season where you're wondering who this team's OC is as they inch towards training camp. I think there's going to be a little more planning and a little bit more structure, at least publicly, this time around.
Okay, Hammer, just hang tight for 1 sec. Folks, let me fire out the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Of course, we're talking a lot about the Jets, this game tonight. What changes? Well, listen, I want to be positive because I think they can and hope that they win this game tonight. I'll preface this with that. But what would a loss mean for the way this lineup looks tomorrow? And what would be the change that you make? Let us know in the chat. We'll get to fan feedback coming up in just a minute. All right, a quick announcement to make here, everybody. And many of you have enjoyed playing in our WST poker tourneys. And, of course, our friends at Coolbet, Pat will be on the show tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more about this. But it put together, over the years, just amazing contests. We had the people that were with us at the Four Nations last year. We had some winners down in Costa Rica last year for the poker tourney. Well, it has been confirmed that the Huss and Hammer show is going to the Costa Rica Poker Open. Now, that's not the announcement. Yes, the champ.
Oh, that's not the announcement. Holy smokes. Bigger than that? Holy smokes. I was waiting for the smoke machine to start.
What everyone will care about is the fact that there's a very good chance that one of our own will be joining us for a week down in Costa Rica for this event. Flights, airfare, hotel, and entry into the main event, which is $550 US. Now, we already had a tournament planned for next Wednesday, so that is on. That will be the first chance to qualify. There are two other tourneys that we've added. Mark these dates down. So next Wednesday, which is the 10th, we are also going to be doing Monday, December 22nd. And then the last chance qualifier is going to be on January 7th. We'll confirm with Pat tomorrow, but I think it'll be probably the top 3 in each of our WST events are going to get a ticket for the final tournament on January the 12th, which is the Monday. And the winner of that will get a trip to Costa Rica, the whole kit and caboodle, the flights, the hotel, the entry into the main event. You'll have a day where you can choose to do something cool, go to like this island. We did the zip lining in the ATV last year. There's golf, all that stuff. So especially if you haven't played in these tournaments beforehand, they're so much fun. I mean, it'll all be the
hang out with
normal
us too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we'll be kicking around. We'll have some time. We'll do some fun content from there. For Coolbet and, of course, for WST. Maybe a special CFL 110 free agency preview that we can record from down there and fire up. But again, December 10, December 22, January 7th. Those 3 dates will be running our regular WST tournament at 8 p.m. And we will have likely the top 3. We'll confirm that with Pat tomorrow when he's on the show. Maybe it'll be more. And everyone that qualifies or finishes in that top will get a ticket into the event on January 12th. And if you're already thinking, I'm winning this thing, you'll be leaving on 2 weeks from that day, the 26th of January, coming back that following Monday. So huge thanks to our partners at Coolbet for putting this together. I think there's one other Canadian qualifier for people to get into the final. I'll get details on that as well. But for WSTers and people that are with us on the show, come out and join us. And there will be some good times, some good eats, and hopefully no bad beats in the big tournament. I know you're coming to win. I mean,
playing for
all
keeps, man. I was just
so
gonna
far.
say, I was wondering when you're gonna stop because I'm playing for keeps. That's the way it is. I know I've been friendly and nice about it now, but now it just got real. So I'm playing for keeps. So if you're coming out there and you want to qualify, absolutely invite you to. You're playing for second place, but I'd love to have you along for the ride for my journey.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be training. We'll be in all these tourneys as well. And I guess, if Hammer wins again or something like that, we'll take the next 3. But the 3 qualifiers, the 10th, next Wednesday, Monday, December 22nd, January 7th, all days that the Jets are not playing. And then, of course, January 12th is the final 2 weeks before we end up flying away. Hammer, you can go do your pre-tanning or whatever you want. And more likely just going through millions of simulations of hands so that you can be ready for the world of
just visualizing
Costa Rica
hands.
Poker Festival.
3 months out of a tournament, I visualize. So it's actually a couple months. So yeah, I'm moving in from visualizing to really playing some games. So I'll be ready. I hope you guys are ready. I think this is awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I encourage everybody to come out. I still have a bounty on my head. Come at me. I dare you. I dare you to do it. Few have survived in their attempts, but come at me. Let's have some fun and hopefully make some people's days, or rather week. By inviting them out to a great trip put on by Coolbet.
It's gonna be great. All right, well, listen, take it easy. We'll talk to you soon. I'm just now trying to visualize a win for the visitors tonight at the Bell Center in Montreal, which will make tomorrow's show a lot more fun. Hammer, have a great one as always, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll do the same thing next week.
All right, there is Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press, the 3-time champion of the WST poker tourney. And our top-ranked player going into the Costa Rica Poker Festival. So again, hopefully we'll see you out for those dates. If you have some friends that are into poker, let them know. We'll have the details. We'll have something that we'll put it out on the newsletter, and we'll put it up on the site with the dates and just if people haven't played before, how they can get into. But anyone that's playing at Coolbet, it's real simple. I mean, you just click on poker, go into the tournaments. I believe they'll be set up in the next couple days, but next Wednesday, your first chance to qualify for the final on January 12th. All right, let's get to the fan feedback. There's been a lot today on the chat. By the way, shout out to Dan Robertson, who popped in the chat. He had a great hit on 690 earlier today. Let's hear it. Fans first, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market, where what you see is what you pay. No added fees. Eagle Eyes, speaking of WST poker players, what's up, Eagle Eyes? He says, keep top line together. Chevy has to bring in more firepower. Lion say, what about putting a guy like Lambert with KFC and Scheif? Put Lardo with Taves and Perfetti. And then Nick Lyman, what's up, Nick? Speaking of poker, I'd love to see you get in there. That'd be fun to have you down there. Scott O'Neill called out DeMello, then bench Salamonson. Why believe any threat, Huss? I mean, Nick, I think we need to live in reality here. Dylan DeMello's got a different spot and role on this team than Elias. Now, listen, if Elias was the best player on the ice in his second game, against Carolina, sure. I mean, he obviously was front and center in the goal that ended up winning it. I believe he was -5. Now, I'm not taking anything away from him, but I mean, it's sort of apples and oranges. And some point with veteran players, you call them out, you give them an opportunity to be better. We can all be the judge of whether he has been better or not. But I mean, as they say, this is going to happen a couple of times, but the rubber's going to hit the road on some of these guys if things don't improve. Comet, Scheif will not like his line broken up. And then let's see here. So I'm not saying you should have benched DeMello. I'm just using an example. It's hard to buy the ideas that coach's words are threats. You know what? Hey, listen, as I said, Scott Arniel's going through it right now the way the rest of the team is. And, we've seen two very different reactions to the last two losses. The discuss and saying that some of his players didn't show up tonight, and that's why he made moves within the games, which, of course, is why we're talking about DeMello moving down and Salamonson getting time with Morrissey. And then, kind of more it's on these guys to figure it out and show a professional effort and execution in this game tonight, coming out of the dismal night and against the Buffalo Sabres. So keep it all coming. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. Let's get Remo back in here. And Remo, man, we covered a lot today on the program. But you can feel the angst. Although I feel better today. I don't know. I was miserable yesterday, and maybe I shouldn't let a certain hockey team dictate my mood on a daily basis. But that's the lot in life I've chosen, I guess, as have so many other fans. How are you feeling about this one tonight?
Yeah, I may have taken some props on Jets to score, so I feel like they're going to be able to put up some goals on Montreal, but the question is, will they be able to keep the puck out of their net? You heard the clip from Darren Dreger talking about the teams. They need to have a better commitment to defense. We'll see if they can do that tonight. We'll see if they can keep up with Montreal. But the Jets, we were surprised when we looked this morning. The Jets are slight favorites against Montreal, but Montreal on a back-to-back. I get it. So, but I do think as we're coming to this realization here that playoffs, I think they're going to be squeaking into a wild card. They're not finishing, not defending that President's Trophy successfully.
Yeah, okay, the President's Trophy has left the building. Anyone that wanted to go back-to-back on that? I mean, honestly, I don't even think the team did. I think they were very proud and were happy to be able to do it last year. And let's face it, they wanted to be first in their division, so they didn't have to play Dallas or Colorado in the first round. I mean, the reason why maybe the Avalanche, we've created the monster that is terrorizing the league, is the fact that the Avalanche were out in the first round of the playoffs last year when they lost to the Dallas Stars. So, I had a fun conversation today with Dusty on just comparing Colorado and Edmonton. I mean, Edmonton has been to the Cup final the last 2 years, and they're really struggling again. They lost last night. That Wallstead just out of his mind. Minnesota just doesn't allow goals anymore. But, you had them with that super long run for back-to-back years. This is what you're getting early in the season from Edmonton. And then you look at the Avalanche, who had to chew on that first-round loss all year, and they have come out seemingly announcing to everyone that they're the best team in the league. And they are not settling for anything less than their best every single night.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes tonight, Hustler, but it's certainly tough in that, I think for the playoffs, if you're on the edge of that line in both conferences, we talk about the West a lot, but the East, Montreal, win, they're in a playoff spot. Right now, they're with a ton of teams, just a couple points out. So, big game for both teams, national TV, very exciting stuff here. Wednesday night hockey.
Yeah, and this is, I'd actually thought about maybe ripping out to Montreal for this game tonight. If you're a fan, just a hockey fan, Bell Center is a must place to go to a game. It really is the cathedral, and the best building in the National Hockey League to watch a game, in my opinion. And it's extra cool if you can see your own team. I was out there once for a Jets. We did a quick weekend, Jets in Montreal and Ottawa. And it actually happened to be, strangely enough, Claude Julien's first game with the Habs after he was fired. And I can't remember who was fired before him. But anyways, great experience if you can get out there to Montreal for a game. We'll be watching it on the tube tonight. Again, as Kevin mentioned, he and Dan are in the press box tonight. It is a Sportsnet game. Wonder if Rennie's on site out in Montreal. Although I guess they've got probably Sportsnet people there. He's probably running somewhere else to do games. But, K&R will be there after the game. Again, don't forget the IC guys doing a bit of a watch party over at BP Taylor. I think they'll be doing their show there after as well. But let's get over to the Coolbet lines. And looking forward to have Pat on tomorrow. We'll have a few more details on just qualifiers and whatnot for the 3 qualifier poker events. But yeah, let your friends know, especially ones that really like to play, if they want a chance for a trip to Costa Rica to play in the Costa Rica Poker Festival from Coolbet. The first chance to get in on that is to qualify in our next WST event on Wednesday, and then 2 more, December 22nd and January 7th, to get in. Yeah, listen, the Jets are favored tonight. The Jets are minus 119 on the money line, and the Habs are plus 101. Montreal did play last night. They didn't have to travel. We all saw what we saw from the Jets. I am surprised, to be honest, Reem, that the Jets are favored. I thought maybe this would be close to a pick'em, but when I woke up this morning, I did not have the Jets laying minus 119. I don't know what to expect from them, and I don't know what to expect from the Habs right now, so it's a stay away. I'm taking a one game reprieve from a straight up Jets parlay at Coolbet. I did cook something up though in the combo cards, which we'll get to in a minute. But as far as NHL games tonight, Dallas is in New Jersey. Dallas lost in OT last night to the Rangers. The Devils, after starting off 9-0-1, have lost their last 2 games on home ice. New Jersey is the favorite tonight, minus 116 over Dallas. We just hit the Jet game. Those are 2 games that are really, really tough to figure out. And now, for whatever reason, the Buffalo Sabres, maybe everybody saw that game on Monday night and now thinks they're world beaters. They're minus 130 favorites in Philly against the Flyers. The Flyers are in a playoff spot right now. So, anyways, I'm taking Philly. Buffalo has lost every time they've won 2 in a row this year. I've got Philly. They're now plus 110. Buffalo minus 130. Utah and the Ducks is a pick'em. That game is in Anaheim. Utah, like the Jets, nice start. Not very good lately. They're at 500. Jets 1 game above. That's minus 109 on each side. I'm like the Ducks. And then the Capitals. The Capitals have been amazing. They won 8 of 9, beat the Kings last night. But this is a tough spot for Washington. They fly. They're playing the second night of back-to-backs, and we've talked a lot about that with the schedule. And San Jose is no easy out anymore. I kind of like the Sharks tonight at plus 130. So if you go into the combo cards, we're not doing a Jets exclusive tonight, but we do have a 3-gamer with a nice boost, and this is a big one. We're taking Philly at home over Buffalo, Anaheim at home over Utah, and the Sharks to upset Washington at home. That one is boosted to plus 953 from plus 827. That's one of the biggest boosts the guys have given us maybe ever. So if you want to jump on that with me, that's up in the combo cards over at Coolbet. Tomorrow, I know in the lock shop we'll be getting to some NFL picks because World Cup draw is coming up on Friday. But NFL right now, still 3 for the Lions on Thursday night. There's a couple loser leaves town matches tonight, this week in the NFL. You got the Thursday nighter, Dallas Detroit. Whoever loses that game probably not making the playoffs, and a similar situation for the Sunday nighter, including my Chiefs and the upstart Houston Texans, who have been on a real roll. But of course, we'll dive into all of our picks Friday. WST winners 10 a.m. it is a great time, though, to check out NFL futures. In case you're wondering, the Rams, despite their loss to the Panthers, are still plus 475 favorites. The Eagles and Seahawks next up at 9-1. Packers and Bills 10-1. Patriots Broncos 11-1. Colts 14-1. Chiefs and Ravens 15-1. Lions 20-1. And then a group of teams at 25-1, including the Niners, the Bears, the Texans, and the Chargers. Tampa Bay 30-1. Jacksonville 35-1. And the Dallas Cowboys 50-1 to win the Super Bowl right now. Drake May's your MVP favorite at minus 130. Matt Stafford plus 120. Big gap. Then Jordan Love. And I'm just looking here. Any interesting divisional odds still up on the board right now? AFC North, I guess Baltimore's minus 204. That seems to be about the shortest. Broncos huge favorite to win the AFC West. I don't even know how the Chiefs could possibly win the division. I guess if they won out and the Broncos crap the bed on a few. Other ones right now. Oh, here's an interesting one. Offensive Player of the Year. Jackson Smith-Njigba, minus 120. Jonathan Taylor, minus 110. 2-horse race there. And Ted McMillan, the rookie from the Panthers, is the favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year at plus 105. Jackson Dart and Emeka Egbuka from the Buccaneers, 3-1 as well. Tyler Warren from the Colts at plus 550. The AFC South, that's the division that's interesting. Colts plus 130, Jags plus 145, and the Texans plus 350. NFC North right now, seeming like a 2-horse race. Packers minus 127 and the Bears plus 140. Those teams play each other this week right now. Going to be a good one tonight, Remo. It'll be a good one. I'm not sure how the team is going to play, but I can tell you that everyone is going to be locked in on this puck drop tonight. And God bless IC and K&R if we see anything like what happened on Monday. But you have to think that, with the stakes being what they are, and the way this team played, that we're going to see a much better version of the Winnipeg Jets. Whether that's enough to beat a really exciting, young, fast team like Montreal coming off a loss, that will remain to be seen tonight when the puck drops.
Yeah, and it's funny. You saw like our show numbers and stuff kind of hummed along, but a bit of a spike after that loss to Buffalo, and a loss like that to Buffalo, the team that, that's the team that caused a lot of players-only meetings. It perks the ears up. But Buffalo, they've had a solid season so far. And for the Jets, we'll see if that players-only meeting had any effect on this team, how they come out. The starts have been very poor. Lately, the defensive structure, not there. Can they rebound? We'll find out soon enough.
Any thoughts on who's going to be a hero for the Jets tonight? Goal scorers? Anyone not on the top line that you think might make an impact?
Picking Kyle Connor. Picking the top. But if I'm picking anyone to score, I don't bother with the other lines. They don't get it done. So I'm done. We need things to change tonight. Like who else on that list? Maybe Morrissey. Well, I had him last game. He was excellent. He was excellent last game. But they're only getting goals from those 4 guys. So someone, anyone. You look at Perfetti, and you kind of just makes you realize like how much this team needed Nikolai Ehlers on that second line. He made everyone better, gave them a threat, and without him, I know it is you don't want to be here like dwelling on a guy who's not here anymore. But when the season isn't going well and you're trying to assess how is this year so different than last year, how do you not bring it up? And sucks to...
listen, at a certain point, you can only talk about last year. That hottie that broke up with you last year, you need to sort of move on. And
that's true, too.
It was get so a Tinder profile or something like that.
They won every game.
Making these happen. I know, she was hot.
They won it. I think we need to, you don't know how good it was. They won every game. They Star had the historic start to the season. President's Trophy. But yeah, you're right. It's not the same team. Not the same team this year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked for a long time about getting that number 2C. Now it's like, who can be a game-breaking difference maker like Nikolai Ehlers? And unfortunately, those guys are not readily available. And if they come at a great cost. Bottom line is, let's see what happens tonight. I hope everyone has a good time. If you're heading down to BP Taylor to see the IC boys, again, mark it down 2 weeks today. We'll be doing Boston Pizza Kenniston for a little WST holiday gathering get-together for the Jets road game against the Blues. And lots of Wednesday action. Next Wednesday will be our first WST poker tourney, which includes qualifiers for the Costa Rica trip. So it's going to be good. But listen, we got to get out because we've got to get the podcast up for folks to tune into before the game tonight. Thanks to Moe Khan, Kevin Sawyer, Jeff Hamilton for joining us. And, of course, all of you. Huge thanks to the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Buckle up, everybody. This will be interesting tonight. Enjoy the game, and make sure to join us tomorrow. Win or lose, we'll break it all down and look ahead to the rematch against the Sabres on Friday on tomorrow's edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great night, and go Jets go. We need this one.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.